Brandon the builder sighed in exhaustion at his table in his tent. He has barely gotten a wink of sleep in the past moons, completing all of the numerous tasks before the next winter came. However, he swelled up in pride thinking of all he had accomplished in the past 9 moons after the War for the Dawn. The Stark family line was secure with his wife Snowdrop, a child of the forest, being pregnant with his heir. Brandon rubbed his tired eyes, before standing up to his full height and stretching, showing off his well-built body. Brandon was a handsome man, with dark brown hair and slightly long face of his father, Brandon the Bloody Blade, but the silver-grey eyes of his mother Artemis, a goddess of the hunt, moonlight, and snow. Her godly essence empowered Brandon to be superior than most men. He stood at a proud height of 160 centimeters tall, taller than the average height of 150 centimeters, his broad shoulders and well-muscled body forged by battles against the White Walkers and his time in the forge, with his grey clothing and wolf fur cloak only complemented his handsome features. While he was stronger, larger, and more skilled than most men, it was his genius-level intellect that truly set him apart from the others. He walked out of the tent into the cold clear air of the north and smiled as he saw his greatest accomplishment. The wall was being raised in defense against the White Walkers' inevitable return. The wall was a construct of pure ice traversing nearly 500 kilometers from the gorge to the Bay of Seals. The wall was currently planned to go up only 100 meters, but there was a lot of room for expansion. There were thousands of giants, first men, and children of the forest all working arduously to have it completed. Brandon made his way towards the wall, where the command tent was set up. The leaders of the first men, giants, and the children of the forest discussed the future in that tent. As soon as he entered the tent, all of the beings quieted down and watched as he took a seat at the head of the table. Brandon said, "My Magners and allies, the construction of the wall is underway and is already a formidable obstacle. I foresee that in a dozen years of hard work, the foundation should be completed. We should now complete our discussion for the future." The massive giant King Mag Mundagsog or King Mag spoke in his deep loud voice. "The giant clans have convened and are ready to swear fealty to you, King Stark. Your leadership and achievements against the White Walkers is uncontested. As long as the Starks remain a strong, just, capable leaders, the giants are happy to follow." Brandon replied, "Thank you, King Mag. Your words mean much to me. It is no longer King Stark. Very well, I will raise you as House Giant Sam, High Magna of the Giants. May your and your house's loyalty never waver." Then it was Leafs, the oldest child of the forest, turn to speak. "King Brandon, you and your father have proven to us that not all men are like the ones we have fought for generations. You have beaten back our greatest shame and do not hold us in contempt for our mistakes. The Council of the Forest has convened and are willing to bend the knee to you. Thank you, Leaf, your kind means much to me and my men. You are the connection to our gods and the family of my wife. I gladly welcome you as the High Magna of the Children of the Forest." When Brandon turned to the giant of a man with light brown hair, who boisterously laughed and said, "Ever since your father beat mine in a wrestling match and your great accomplishments in the war, House Umber stays loyal vassals to House Stark." "Thank you, John. That goes for House Reed as well, King Brandon. As long as the Children of the Forest and House Reed has protection from House Stark, we will be loyal vassals," said the small man with nutty brown hair. "House Reed has been a great vassal to House Stark, High Magna Hojan." "House Stark will keep to their oaths," replied Brandon. Finally the average-sized but very hairy man said, "House Mormont has followed House Stark up north, we will not abandon House Stark now. House Mormont has been the greatest vassals House Stark could have ever hoped for." "You will be rewarded," said Brandon, pushing him to sit up a little higher. He continued, "We must now decide what to do. The War for the Dawn is over, but there is much work to do. The North is divided and we are faced with jealous enemies from all sides. House Stark will not gain support from any of the houses in the south as they resent the fact that my grandfather, Garth the Green Hand, came up north in his final years. We must carve and claim the land quickly. We are currently at an advantage of numbers, but that will not last long. High Magna Umber, you may take your man back to your home and establish your borders. Be sure to not overextend yourself, we cannot afford such silly mishaps. That goes to you as well, High Magna Reed. You may go back to the Neck as the High Magna of the Neck. You are to take control of the entire region and begin to grow your strength. What are your plans, High Magna Leaf, and High Magna Mag?" High Magna Mag began first. We are a nomadic folk, King Stark. We seek to bring all of our kin and mammoths down below the wall and allow them to roam and graze. Very well, High Magna Mag. I name you High Magna of the Giants. May you and your sons rule the Giants forever. I give you leave to herd the mammoths and lead your nomadic tribe all across the north. As long as you are not causing any damage, you are allowed to use all of the north as your grazing grounds. Thank you, King Stark. What would you like to do, High Magna Leaf? The children of the forest would like to go back into the Wolfwood and raise a ground settlement for the children of the forest. That is reasonable. You may have a part of the Wolfwood near where Winterfell, to build your settlement. May you and your children forever be known as High Magna of Eliliath. Your Grace, may I ask what will become of House Mormont? Asked Magna Daemon Mormont. Do not fear, Magna Mormont, I have plans for your lands. But until then I wish for you to stay with House Stark. As you command, Your Grace. I have decided that House Stark shall raise its fortress on the lands where Winter itself fell, and be forever known as Winterfell, to remind everybody the valiance and nobility of our warriors. I have also sent out many scouting parties beyond the wall to bring all other First Men clans of the north below the wall, as long as they are willing to swear themselves to House Stark. That is a brilliant idea, Your Grace, said High Magna Reed. Good, all of you are dismissed. Underscore 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 underscore. Brief excerpt of the timeline of the North, in the Encyclopedia, The History of the Kingdom of the North. 0 year after the war, Brandon the Builder builds the wall. Rickard Strongwolf is born to Brandon the Builder and Snowdrops. All inhuman traits of the children of the forest is avoided in Rickard Strongwolf. Only explanation seems to be due to the godly blood flowing through the Stark line. Only change into the Stark appearance is the addition of slightly bigger eyes and greater sight at night. He gives the option for all of the First Men tribes of the north to come south and bend the knee to him in return for land and titles. All sentient beings agree, just having experienced a great massacre by the Night King. The Giants brings herds of mammoths and aurochs down from beyond the wall. Many clans came from beyond the wall and were formed into houses. 1 year after the war, Brandon the Builder, after large payments by House Hightower, lays plans for Hightower in Old Town, one of the oldest towns in the world, for money and experience in architecture. 3 years after the war, House Towers is overthrown by House Grey Wolf for control of the Stony Shore, as Magna Ignotus Grey Wolf walks into one of the last sea dragon ever to be seen, to completely destroy House Towers. 5 years after the war, Brandon the Builder lays the plans for Storm's End for the money and experience working with magic of the children of the forest into buildings. Torhen the Wise Wolf is born to Brandon the Builder and Snowdrops. A great friendship between King Brandon the Builder Stark and King Doran the God's Grief Durandon is formed. King Doran, with the help of King Brandon, is able to win favor with the gods, by completing the task set out by the god of the sea Neptune and goddess of the wind Freya to marry their daughter, goddess of storms Eleni. House Stark and House Durandon would have strong relationships due to this, and House Durandon is one of the few non-northern houses House Stark would marry. 6 years after the war, Brandon the Builder lays the plans for Winterfell using his ingenuity to create piping the hot springs to warm his castle. The giants and mammoths for hard labor for the first time in the creation of a fortress. Building towers as tall and strong as Hightower, with magic weaved into the very stones like Storm's End, creates the outline of a very mighty castle. 10 years AW, Brandon the Builder completes the base of Hightower, leaving the rest to Hightower as the instructions are very clear and could be completed by themselves. House Hightower is happy to let Brandon leave so that they may add hidden passages and secrets into their castle. 12 years AW, Storm's End foundation and base has been built by House Stark. The magic has already been weaved and is resistant to the magic of the Storm God. This builds a very strong relationship between House Durandon and House Stark. The base of the wall is complete, and one of Brandon's last accomplishments as king is the foundation of the Night's Watch. 15 years AW, Brandon the Builder dies of old age. The great funeral saw many kings and magnas come from all of Westeros to mourn for the loss of the great king. The crypts are built by the Rickard Strongwolf with Garth the Green Hand, one of two only non-Starks to ever be buried in the crypt, Brandon the Bloody Blade and Brandon the Builder inside. underscore 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 underscore. The Crown Prince Ricard was a strong fighter, great wartime leader, and brilliant strategist, but lacked finesse at negotiations and the skill and patience in running a country on a daily basis. His younger brother Prince Torren, while a moderately skilled fighter, preferring the dual-wielding style, was excellent in the field of diplomacy, economics, ruling the small folk, and running a country. Together they formed a formidable team, allowing each other to flourish in their respective area. Prince Ricard fought with the Stark army, fighting back barbarians and bandits. He gained a reputation and moniker of the Strong Wolf. While his younger brother slowly took control of the finances from his father and nearly doubled the amount of money being raised by House Stark, earning his nickname as the Wise Wolf. Underscore 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 underscore. On King Brandon's deathbed, he looked upon his two sons and said, "My sons, you will have many enemies in your quest of uniting the North and the Neck. But together and only together, will you be able to accomplish such a dream. When you are together, you will able to beat the Red King, Warg King, Barrow King, Glovers, Riders and all the other petty kings that control the North. I see a great future for House Stark and you must make your mark." And with those words the King of Winter, King Brandon the Builder Stark, died at the age of 55. Underscore 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 underscore. In his honor, the two brothers built the great crypts of Winterfell and buried King Brandon II next to his father and grandfather, with a replica crown and an iron greatsword, starting a tradition that will last for many millenniums. They then held a great funeral, inviting even the rival kings. Every king but the Barrow King and the Red King of the North attended, accepting bread and salt and sealing their guest rights. The ceremony was a mournful affair, as even the rival kings agreed that a great man had been ripped from the world. Underscore 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 underscore. King Ricard planned to begin his conquest of the North with an attack on the Barrow Kings. He ironed out his father's rough plans, deciding to use the Barrow Kings as an example of House Stark's power. The Amberstin were one of the most powerful houses in the North, and King Ricard was angry at the slight the Barrow Kings had caused when they had not attended his father's funeral. The plan involved the Reeds attacking and harassing the Barrow King and his vassals. When they get angry enough, they were going to lead the men into the swamps where they would be destroyed. While the Barrowmen are getting destroyed in the swamps of the Neck, the Starks would move in with their men and pick off the remainder. The Umbers would be left to guard their border with the Red King, although it is very unlikely that they will attack due to the threat of the Hornwoods. With the Giants and the Mammoths at their disposal, their goal should be easily accomplished, and if their bait works it should happen with minimum losses. Sending a raven to the Umbers and a messenger to the Reeds, the vassals were informed of his plans, and two raven arrived 2 weeks later with their agreement. The Umbers informed King Ricard that they would be ready to defend the border within 2 moons, and the Reeds replied that they would be ready in 3 moons. Underscore 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 underscore. 4 moons had passed. The Stark men were ready for the message from the Reeds saying that the Barrowmen were moving toward the Neck. The men were training to gain an advantage, the Giants were riding atop the enormous Mammoths, and the children were ready to enact their vengeance upon the men that burned their weirwood trees. Underscore 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 underscore. King Roderick Amberstin was a smart man. He could tell the Starks were setting him up to a trap. However, no matter how smart the Ambustins were, their bannermen would revolt soon should they do not act. He knew if he attacked the Reeds, the Stark would come in and take their crown. All of his Magners, in their anger and pride, will send all of their men on this attack against to the neck, leaving the Barrowlands wide open. Yet, if he did not act, his line would be overthrown and replaced, and he could not allow that his proud legacy to fall. So he walked down from his solar and called for a messenger. Inform my bannermen that they are to bring their men here in a month's time. I am going to destroy those damned Crannog men. Underscore 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 underscore. Barrowton was bustling with activity. Men were being drilled and the Magners and their king are conducting a war council. Magna Brandon Dustin said, how about we seem weak baiting the damned Reed to attack us, and when they deploy their full force we come in and destroy them with ours. These Crannog men are not meant for real combat. The only thing they can do is harass our units. King Roderick replied, that is a commendable idea, but we still face the problem of the Starks. Magna Cregan Downward said, please, the pup will go to support the Reeds rather than attack our lands. He is inexperienced, and even if he does not, he has to worry about the damned Boltons. Besides, those fucking Crannog men killed my men and I will retaliate in full. The other Magners roared in approval, and King Ambustin knew there was no way to stop this. Sighing quietly, King Roderick said, very well, but know that I have tried to warn you. We leave in a week's time. Prepare the men. Underscore 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 underscore. Magna Downward was playing the part of the bait, leading the Crannog men to their death. He was quite happy with this plan. It used an apt amount of deception but also had a brutal simplicity. Before he could continue this line of thought, he saw the men in front of the vanguard dropping to the ground lifelessly. They each had an arrow stuck out of their neck and he could see more arrows coming. He screamed, form ranks. Make them use their entire force. And get a messenger to our king. His men scrambled around to follow their orders. They hastily brought up their shields and tried their best to block the arrows and poison darts flying towards them. The designated messengers quickly got on their horses and rode off to inform the king. Magna Downward nodded grimly. Now they just had to wait for the main force to arrive. He ran to pick up his shield and ran behind a cart to use it as cover. Underscore 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 underscore. King Roderick rode atop his horse, slowly marching their way to the vanguard. When they saw a figure from the distance rode towards them, the men gripped their weapons tightly, ready to attack in a moment's notice. When the rider got close, he said, the Crannog men are here. King Roderick smiled. He could go home quickly before they got attacked by the Starks. He looked at their men and said, well, let's trap some Crannog men. Magna Dustin, you shall lead the men to attack them from the back when they retreat. I shall lead the men in attacking them from the front. Move. King Roderick rode ahead to kill those damned Crannog men so they may never bother House Ambustin again. Part of his men split up to follow Magna Dustin. He knew that they had to move quickly or they will be taken advantage of by the Starks, so he pushed his men forward faster. Within an hour they meet up with the bait force. They were being shot up with arrows and blow darts, with many dead littering the field. The men screamed and charged forward the Crannog men. As soon as the Crannog men saw the real army, they turned and rode back towards the neck. The more heavily armored Barrow men could not catch up, but with their blood and hearts racing they could run for longer, leading them to ignore the exhaustion they should be feeling. King Roderick knew that the men that he sent ahead would be able to stop them. Afterwards, he would take his men back to the castle, leaving his bannermen to do whatever they want with the Reeds. underscore 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 underscore. Just as the Crannog men began to approach the swamps of the neck, his flanking force charged at the Crannog men from the other side. It looked like it would be a massacre and the perfect trap. The Crannog men was nearly perfectly bottled up and were unable to escape from the encirclement. But just as the first Crannog men began to fall, the ground began to shake. The men looked around in shock, quickly turning their heads to see a very terrifying sight. Out of the swamps came a dozen giants. The men came to a grinding halt and stared up in awe and fear, as the giants came charging. Realizing that they were the target of the giants, the men tried to run away, but with their exhaustion they were not able to make it very far. 4 of the giants and the Crannog men took care of the men that were attempting to hide in the neck, and the 9 other giants charged the men. No matter how fast they ran, a man, especially a man who was running for an hour, can't outrun a giant 3 times his size. The giants swung their mighty arm wielding massive clubs. They knocked away dozens of men with a single swing, killing or incapacitating them. King Roderick, the other lords and higher-ranked men riding on horses, was barely able to ride away, leaving behind the majority of his forces. King Roderick rode back to Barrowton and made his way to the gates of Barrow Hall. It was an hour ride at full pace. He ordered the gates to open, but was shocked and very angry when the gate remained firmly shut. He shouted upwards, "I am the king, let me in." The men atop the wall yelled back, "You're no king of mine. You dare question me? I am the Barrow King Roderick of House Amberston, second of my name. When I get through I will have your head." Before he could continue to berate and scream at the man, a crisp but loud voice cut him off. "You will do no such thing. I am King Ricard of House Stark, first of my name, High Magna of Winterfell, King of Winter and the North, High King of the First Men, the Children of the Forest, and the Giants. My men have captured this castle and the 2 other important keeps in the Barrowlands. Your men have been killed or routed. They were most inexperienced at fighting the giants. I am not a cruel man. I will not wipe out a house without just cause, so I will give you a choice. Bend the knee, give me your crown, and I will let you continue to be High Magna of the Barrowlands, return your lands stronger than it ever was on your own, just like the reeds are the High Magna of the Neck, and the numbers are the High Magna of Last Hearth. You have till dawn to decide." "I don't need till dawn, you cunt. You upstarts think you can take my ancestors' lands from me. This is my birthright. I am an Amberston, you best remember. I have been in these lands long before you filthy southerners, and we will stay long after you. I demand a trial by combat. May the old gods decide who is more worthy to be king. Very well, if you wish for the doom of your entire family, so be it. I accept your challenge. I will see you at the Godswood at dawn. Ready yourself, Amberston, for you are about to meet our gods." Ricard turned around and walked out of view with Roderick still screaming bloody murder. Underscore 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 underscore. Ricard sat by the weirwood tree praying and preparing himself as Roderick and his party entered the clearing. When Roderick descended from his horse, Ricard stood. "This is your last chance, Amberston. Bend the knee. I will never to the likes of you, Stark." "Very well." The 2 men began to shed their armor and cloak, handing the items to their bannerman to hold. Both men then carefully took off their crowns and handed it off to their bannerman, who would protect it for their king. The Starks had a crown of copper which had a snarling wolf head surmounted with bronze spikes in the likeness of longswords, carved runes of the First Men. The Amberston had a circuit crown with runes of the First Men carved on with an amber stone embedded. Both men drew their weapons, King Ricard preferring to use the celestial bronze greatsword ice, whilst King Roderick preferred a more classic longsword and shield. Clad in only pants, both men began to circle each other with men from each party forming a large arena to fight in. The face carved into the weirdwood watching on as the 2 men began their fight to the death. Ricard tested Roderick's defenses with a quick jab. Roderick brought his shield around to block with ease, following up a sideways slash of his own. Ricard calmly tilted his head back and allowed the blade to cut through the air. With that quick encounter both fighters got much more serious. Ricard attacked with strong quick attacks, using his reach and stronger build with great efficiency. Roderick fought in a reactive style, using his shield to block his opponent's attack and immediately counter-attacking. This led to the fight being heavily speed-based, where Ricard attacked in a flurry of attacks to break through Roderick's shield wall and having to quickly dodge and block Roderick's counter-attack. They traded hundreds of clashes, just waiting for the other to slip up and make a mistake which the other could exploit. Ricard made the first slip up, not being able to pull back fast enough to fully dodge a slash at the cheek and ending up with a cut on his cheek. Ricard quickly made it up as Roderick moved to attack with a follow-up. Ricard sidestepped and returned a jab of his own and cut the Roderick's thigh, combed with a punch at Roderick's jaw forcing him to reel back, giving Ricard some room to wield ice. Roderick attempted to close the distance by using the shield to charge at Ricard, but Ricard saw it coming, sidestepped out of the way and slashed at Roderick's back, landing another blow, leaving Roderick to scream in pain. The men that surrounded the arena began to chant, making deep war cries and smashing their weapons against their shields or the ground, starting off very quiet at first but building to a very loud war chant. Roderick bit through the pain and gets back into his fighting stance. Both fighters looked like ethereal warriors, as their steam could be seen rising from their bodies. Ricard charges Roderick and attacks in a flurry of blows, attacking from all angles. Roderick performed admirably for fighting with an injury on both the back and leg, but for every attack he blocked and for every hit he absorbed, the force travels straight towards the wounds, slowing his body and reaction time. In the end, Roderick was unable to react fast enough to block the slash to the gut. The chanting stopped and Roderick fell to his knees. The clearing, which was once full of life and noise, was deadly silent except for the deep gasping for breath of the two warriors. Ricard then swung his arm back and beheaded Roderick, leaving his blood to soak the weirwood tree. Ricard then turned around to the men and found them all on their knee, even the Ambustin Magners and men. Ricard retrieved his cloak and threw it on, as well as putting on his crown, before turning to the Ambustin Magners and saying, "I am not a cruel man. You are loyal bannermen who just followed your liege. That is completely understandable. I will not have you executed, sent to the wall, or take you titles and land. As long as you swear fealty to a High Magna of the Barrowland, who will then swear fealty to me. I will even allow you to choose your new High Magna." The three Magners look among themselves and the choice was obvious. House Dustin was the second most powerful house in the Barrowlands, with Magna Dustin also being the most intelligent and capable commander. Magna Downward stepped forward and bent the knee to Magna Dustin and swore his vows, which were followed by Magna Howl. Magna Dustin then turned to King Ricard and kneeled. "I, Magna Brandon Dustin, first of my name, pledge myself and my house to Winterfell. We pledge the faith of Barrow Hall. Hearth and harvest, and I yield up to you, your grace. Our swords, spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and bring justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I, King Ricard Stark, pledge to grant mercy to your weak, help your helpless, and give justice to all. I accept your oaths, rise as High Magna Dustin of the Barrowlands. Your Grace, may I ask what will happen to the Ambustin line?" King Roderick Ambustin had a son and 2 girls. "You will most likely want your heir to marry one of the Ambustin girls. Another girl will be married into the Stark line. Although you have the closest blood relation to House Ambustin, it is not very close. All males of House Ambustin shall join the Night's Watch and take up the honorable task of watching for the Night King's return or face ice. The other girls will have a happy marriage granted to a noble vassal of House Stark. Your family line will need to be added into the Stark family line in the next 4 generations. Underscore 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 underscore. With the Dustins as their vassals, House Stark was recuperating. House Stark was not the only that went to war. House Bolton, the Red King of the North, attacked the Hornwoods and vassalized them. With House Stark at war, they had not needed to worry about a surprise attack from the west. The Glovers were raided by the mountain clans after fighting the Greenwoods and Blackwoods, and the Warg King and the Ryswell went to war. It ended with the Warg King Gavan Grey Wolf capturing the entire Stony Shore, declaring himself king of the Stony Shore. House Stark kept their promise to House Dustin by fortifying Barrow Hall, adding new towers and strengthening the walls. Then with the Aurochs, they feed their men meat and leaving behind salted meat so they could bring their populations up. This would lead to House Stark having the most amount of men compared to all the other northern kings. Underscore 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 underscore. 5 years have passed since the assimilation of the Dustins. House Stark once again brought up their Levi numbers to near max capacity. The Dustins has also recovered with most of their levies back up. The Reeds had recovered the few Crannog men that they had lost, and the Umbers did not lose a single man whilst guarding, as they were not attacked. King Rickard Stark was no longer doubted by his bannermen as being weak. He has proven himself in battle and conquest of the old way. King Rickard Stark married Lyanna Amberstin to bring them fully into the fold. This would start the Stark tradition of wedding the daughter of conquered kings, and talented men and women into the Stark line. Prince Torren married Alyssa Reed, a skilled in fighting with a trident and net, and very proficient in shooting blow darts. As the land near the White Knife was unclaimed, he went to where the White Knife met the river coming from the Wolf's Wood. This would serve as the last stronghold defense against pirates coming up north through the White River all the way to Winterfell. He settled there as a small volcano had erupted there, and using the newly created hot springs. He created the House White Estac and raised a moderate-sized keep named White Hall. The sigil was a white direwolf running across a black field. He brought settlers over with the promise of new land to farm and allow cattle to graze. Because of Prince Torren's gift in economics and trade, he immediately capitalized on the volcano, trading away the dragon glass, using it to warm his castle, and to warm the glass houses. The volcanic heat would later be used to forge metal better and more efficiently. In retaliation, House Bolton settled near the unclaimed lands on the south coast of the Bay of Seals. The settlement was inland by a small river, in the wood. It was not a great castle, but it allowed the Bolton claim on the nearby land, thus colonizing another part of the north. King Rickard planned another invasion, but this time attacking the Ryswell. They never fully recovered from the Grey Wolf's attack. Although the Warg King was also hurt from the war, they were not as hurt as the Ryswell were. Once again the Umbermen were used to man the borders, with the Reeds providing assistance, this time due to the assimilation of the Hornwoods. With the combined forces of House Giant Sam, Dustin, and Stark, the weakened Ryswell quickly gave up their crown. There was no noteworthy battle. Once seeing the superior numbers and the giants atop mammoths, House Ryswell knew they were outmatched. To keep their family line safe, they gave up their crown after hearing about the fate of House Amberstin. In return, House Stark raised them to the High Magna of the Rills. House Stark began to invest in House Ryswell's horse breeding, gifting them strong mounts and money to allow them to grow to be one of the best horse breeders in the world. They then began work on Castle Rills, strengthening it and making it much harder to take. Underscore 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 underscore. House Glover meet the same fate as House Ryswell. They had just beaten the Greenwoods, wiping out the main line and only allowing a small offshoot house survive, expelling House Blackwood from the north, who would go down to the Riverlands and conquer a peace for themselves, but doing so left the weak. Just strong enough to go into revolts or lose control of their lands, but definitely not strong enough to fight the giants and waves of Stark men. Especially after being raided by the mountain clans for so long. House Glover also lost their crown and became the High Magna of the Wolfwood. For their crown, House Stark revamped Deepwood Motte. The wood walls and keep were torn down and replaced with stone. It would be made into a major castle of the north. The hill was made steeper with a moat being added. They doubled the strength of the keep, earning the gratitude of House Glover. King Rickard traded away furs and food for the land of Wolfwood containing the largest forest of ironwood. He then gifted it to House Forrester, who sought refuge and sought for protection in return of becoming their vassals. They were the branch house of House Greenwood and they had mastered the use of ironwood. A special type of wood as hard as iron, could deflect bronze swords with ease, and it was very difficult to burn. Only a forester knew how to burn ironwood, and when it lit, it would light into a bright blue flame, burning hotter than normal wood. House Forester wood guarded this secret to their death, protecting the wealth and secret of House Forester. House Highpoint will spend generations attempting to steal the knowledge, but will never managing. With the monopoly of the ironwood, House Forester grew in power and used the wood and money earned to raise Ironrath. A castle made from stone and ironwood, it was a testimony of House Forester's skill with the hardest wood in existence. They traded away items made from such as ironwood shields, furniture, and etc. Underscore 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 underscore. Another 2 years has passed, and King Rickard Stark used the time to prepare for what would be the greatest challenge yet in their conquest of the North, the Warg King Gavin Grey Wolf. He was the most human powerful warg, controlling a great bear, and was a renowned fighter. He was undefeated in single combat and has successfully won a war against the House Riswell, proving his salt as a battle commander. His keep was in Sea Dragon Point, and he held the title, the King in the Stony Shore. He had the strongest human wargs within his army and would control many animals to fight for them. When a warg enters the mind of an animal, the mind is strained, but the body is at rest. So they could fight as animals, then switch out and fight as a man. This gave the Warg King a major boon, as it greatly increased their fighting number without risking men. King Rickard was greatly aware of this fact and was considering different methods to conquer the Warg King. He was in a war council with all his High Magners discussing the different possibilities. Not one person could come up with a decent solution. They had more men, better equipment, and the giants as well, but the Warg King had the ability to constantly harass and attack their men. This would greatly lower the morale of the soldiers and lower the amount of men that would reach the Warg King. As the different High Magners were arguing, High Magna Whitestok spoke up, and said, "Why don't we ask the children of the forest to help us? They might have a way to help us." Realizing the potential of what his brother was suggesting, King Rickard Stark called for a messenger to retrieve the High Priest of the Children of the Forest. Underscore 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 underscore. The children of the forest are humanoid, but when grown to adulthood most were no taller than a human child. Their facial features are very rounded and soft. They have disproportionately large and expressive cat-like eyes, which are set wider in their face than would be normal for a human child of the same height. Ironically, they can live for much longer periods than the average men. The High Priest tree was already 205 years old. He was made the High Priest, due to his gift in magic and his connection to the old gods. His real name was not Tree, but he was called that by the first men as they cannot speak the true tongue. King Rickard asked, "Could the children of the forest help us fight the Warg King? I am a powerful warg, but he is even more powerful than I. Once they are in their animal, the only way to cut the connection is to kill the animal or kill the warg." That is not true. A warg could enter an animal being controlled by another warg and rip the connection away from them. You would need to be a far more powerful warg. However, this is not a concern, as currently even the weakest children would be more powerful than a human warg. Although, that will most likely soon change as the first men are becoming more connected to the old gods. Your family's affinity to magic will most likely increase the most, as House Stark is already been touched by the old gods, judging by your gift in the elemental magics. But either way, we can take control of the animals and prevent them from attacking your men. Good, that will make things far easier. High Magna Whitestok replied, "So we have a plan." "I hope so. However, I can't have the Starks attacked by the Boltons behind the back. Which brings me to my next point. You shall rule in my stead. You are to take control of half your men and most of the Umber men. Guard our borders, keep the small folk happy, and put down any revolts. Again. I am being left to guard again. This would be the 4th time. I know, Tor, but you have done a great job before, and not only that, but your skills aren't in battle. Mine is, yours is in the administration aspect. Remember what our father said, we must stick to our strengths and work together. I need you to trust me. Fine Rick, I will do this for you. But damn you to hell, for making me do this. Don't worry Tor, I will have this war finished in no time. Underscore 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 underscore. King Ricard led his army toward the peninsula of Sea Dragon Point. There he saw the Warg King's army. This was to be the strangest fight in all of Westeros. The battle was to be between the first men, giants, children of the forest, and many different animals. House Stark opted to not bring any beasts with them, in case the Warg King ripped the control of them away. Both armies set up camp and King Ricard Stark rode out under the banner of truce to King Gaven Grey Wolf to discuss ending the battle before it even starts. King Ricard spoke first. We can end this without any bloodshed. You only need to bend your knee. King Gavin Grey Wolf snorted and replied, why should I bend the knee to a weak wolf like you? The Grey Wolves is more powerful the Stark. I have more men, I have the giants, and the children of the forest backing me. While you have less men and only animals on your side. Blah, don't act like you have a massive advantage over me, Stark. You know that we are evenly matched. No matter how strong the giants are, they cannot fight 5 bears at once. I see you were smart enough not to bring the mammoths. I see, does this mean that you won't be surrendering? No, I will not bend the knee. Very well said King Ricard, who got back on his horse and rode off. Underscore 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 underscore. The following evening, King Ricard gathered his Magners and said, we are going to attack them just before the animals to go to sleep. Surprise their beasts. Shoot flaming arrows, make loud noises. The more the animal is scared, confused, or angry, the more difficult they are to control. High Magna Umber then said, why do we have to do that? The children are here to combat the wargs, why not use them right away? If we show all of our tricks too quickly, we will have no surprises for the Warg King, while he will have all the surprises for us. High Magna Riswell said, but if we capture the Warg King here, wouldn't the fight be over? We have an opportunity here. No. We will not be betting on a single trick. If we don't win, the war will drag out for decades. They won't face it an open battle once they know that they can't use the animals openly. Underscore 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 underscore. With Torrin Whitestak gone, the after morning the parley, House Stark attacked the Grey Wolf in surprise, starting the legendary War of the Wolves. The Starks rained fire down upon the men and the animals. The animals immediately freaked out, rampaging across the camps. Half of the powerful wargs were able to control their animals, but the other animals trampled and killed many men. King Gaven, realizing the threat, shouted, form ranks. The Starks are coming. As soon as he said that, men charged through into their camps. The very first ironwood shields was proving useful for the front ranks in deflecting arrows. The men broke through the barely formed ranks like a knife carving meat. King Gaven commanded his bear to attack the Stark men, obliterating many. King Ricard's plan worked a little too well. The crazed animals started to attack all men, not being merely focused upon attacking the Grey Wolves but the Starks as well. The giants focused on the big animals like bears and boars, while the men focused on the small animals like eagles. The battle lasted the entire morning, with the Starks slowly gaining ground. The crazed animals were killed by the first hour. The other animals were killed by the third hour, and the Grey Wolf men were pushed back by midday. It was not to say the Starks had an easy battle. High Magna Reed gained a battle scar with 12 giants and thousands of Stark men dead. King Ricard himself slew many enemies. He fired blast, waves, and shards of ice, as well as slashing with his great sword. King Gaven was no slouch either. He was able to switch between his weapon and kill many men with his blade, then walk back into his bear, killing many in his bear form. He could switch back and forth nearly instantaneously. He and his bear alone killed a giant, a feat not many can boast. But at the end of the day, the men and the element of surprise won the battle for House Stark. But King Gavan was able to escape and part of his men escaped as well. The battle was named the Battle of the Beasts. Underscore 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 underscore. The War of the Wolves was not a quick affair as the Starks hoped. The Starks marched their army towards the stony shore. But they were harassed the entire way. The Starks put faith within the Children of the Forest's ability to stop the animals from attacking them. However, when they were attacked by fast-moving birds, the Children of the Forest could do nothing. The birds and the animals attacked too quickly and moved too quickly for the Children of the Forest to take control of. This resulted in a continuous harassment. It was during the War of the Wolves, King Ricard's son was born. King Ricard named him Benjen after his mentor. King Gavan refused to give up. He would make sure that taking every single keep was a challenge. 14 battles was fought in the War of the Wolves and 4 sieges took place over the course of 10 years. But slowly by slowly he was pushed back all the way to his keep at Sea Dragon Point. The keep was called Dragon's Watch. It was said that the first Warg King took control of a sea dragon, also known as a sea serpent. After he took the cast, he conquered the land by destroying navies and spitting boiling water at castle and men, killing and destroying anything in its path. Any invading force was wiped out by the serpent. When the first Warg King died, the sea dragon went back into the ocean, never to be seen again. Now King Ricard was before the Dragon's Watch. He saw that it was not nearly as grand as Winterfell, in fact it was not even close. But it had the potential to equal in size to his High Magnus castle. His men were tired of this war campaign. It has taken 10 years of his life, the longest war he ever had to fight, but they were winning and House Grey Wolf would either be forced to bend the knee or be exterminated. Underscore 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 underscore. King Ricard sat in his tent pondering over his dilemma. The Starks had enough provisions to starve out King Gavan's men, but the longer they stayed here the weaker they would get. The problem were the fucking Boltons. There was no way that they would not capitalize on House Stark's weakest point. Should the Boltons attack them, House Stark would have done all the work for House Bolton in conquering the north, and he was not about to let that happen. The only solution was to siege the castle. Hopefully with the siege towers and the giants, taking a castle of this size should be easy. They currently had made 10 siege towers with the surrounding wood. The plan was for the giants to push the tower, both simultaneously moving the tower forward and using it as a shield from the arrows. The men will then make their way to opening the gate, and once that happened the battle should be over. Underscore 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 underscore. In very early in the morning the Starks launched their attack. The guard, seeing this, quickly sounded the alarm and called for reinforcement. By the time the enemy got ready to shoot, House Stark had covered half of the ground. Soon a wave of arrows rained down upon the siege towers, but the arrows could not sufficiently damage the siege towers. The men faced minimal casualties due to their ironwood shields. The men had made it to the wall relatively unscathed, but their problems only began. Animals began to come out of the forest to attack them. Rocks were dropped, birds attacked men, and bears attacked the Stark men. Even through all of this harassment, the Stark men carefully went up the siege towers and began to attack the walls. King Ricard was one of the first men on the wall, creating an opening for the rest of them. He slayed men left and right, carving a path on the wall. He allowed more and more towers to reach the walls. Soon the men were on the wall, and he made his way down to open the gate. King Ricard lost count on how many men he killed during this battle. He fought 5 men at a time, cutting, jabbing, blocking, slashing, and then going back to jabbing. It soon became like a trance, as he fell into a familiar pattern. He made his way to the gate, undoing the blockade on the gate, opening the gates for the men to come through. Slowly by slowly the Grey Wolf's men were being put into a corner. King Gavan, knowing the hopelessness of the situation, said, "Stop. I surrender." All of the Stark men immediately stopped attacking, but they did not put away their weapons. They were ready to start the fight again immediately, not letting down their guard. Two men stepped away, allowing King Ricard to approach, and he said, "You can lay down your crown and become my vassal, or will you face ice? It is your choice." The wargs of the Warg King army looked ready to retaliate with their familiars, and the Stark men were about to start attacking again. Just when the tension became almost unbearable, King Gavan spoke again and said, "I will. I will." King Gavan stopped gathering his strength, to overcome his pride, slowly bending his knee, and said, "Bend the knee. House Stark has proven himself the greater wolf, and House Grey Wolf would not die out today. I, King Gavan Grey Wolf, the Warg King, first of my name, King of the Stony Shore, hand my kingship to King Ricard Stark and House Stark. May they forever protect our weak and defend our honor." King Ricard smiled and said, "House Grey Wolf was a strong opponent, and I commend you for your strength. In return for bending the knee, I name you High Magna of the Stony Shore. House Stark will forever protect the honor of House Grey Wolf and defend your weak. May they never falter in their loyalty to House Stark. Underscore 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 underscore. King Ricard stayed in Dragon's Watch for a moon, and soon King Ricard and Magna Gavan developed a friendship of sorts. They respected each other's strength and martial prowess. King Ricard had formed a betrothal contract between Crown Prince Benjen and High Magna Gavan's daughter Alyssa Grey Wolf. This would tie House Grey Wolf closely to House Stark, uniting the houses. With Magna Gavan's former crown, in the shape of many animals made of bronze, King Ricard rode his way back to Winterfell as the Ryswell and Dustin made their way back to their homes. House Stark had suffered the most losses during the War of the Wolves, coming back with only half the men that they had left with. However, it was worth it, as House Stark dominated most of the north, with only having the east ruled by the Red Kings, the mountains ruled by the many mountain clans, and the Magnas of Skagos. He rode through the gates of Winterfell, the grand castle's magnificence visible hours before approaching it. When he rode into the courtyard, his brother had greeted him. Magna Torren said, "Have you finally conquered the Grey Wolf?" "I have. It took a long time, but it is done." "Good. House Stark has never been stronger. Father would be proud of us." "He would be. Now, tell me what has happened during the time that I was away." "Nothing major to report. I used my men to kill any bandits group that had formed. Nothing to report on the Boltons. They appear to be quiet. I have finally finished my castle, and the region has now indisputable mine. Winterfell's coffers are filled, and the people of Wintertown is happy. Finally, the children of the forest says winter will come within the next year, so I have made sure to keep our larder filled." "You have done well, Tor." "Thanks, but I was only doing my duty. I need to ride back to Whitehall. I have been away too long, and I have to make sure my rule is consolidated." "Go, Tor. I wish you luck in the years to come, and make sure to visit Winterfell whenever you can." "Thank you, brother." Underscore 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 underscore. When High Magna White Estok left, he took all of the White Estok men. The first man houses from beyond the wall were serving and staying with the different house of the north, so they may learn how to be a Magna of the Starks and to increase the power of the north. House Stark intended to keep their promise of land in the future. But currently they were busy conquering the north. They could not give away land, in case they did not have time to consolidate their forces and have to fight rebellions and enemy kings, without a strong unified land. Only House Giantsbane remained with House Stark, the rest going to his High Magnas and different Magnas of the north. With most of the men gone, it presented the Boltons with an opportunity. Winterfell has never been so undefended. All of the Stark bannermen would have faced some loss, and their force would have also just been released, and were all making their way back home. That means that they would not receive the ravens from House Stark until they make it back home, and when they did they would need to recall all the men, and then march all the way back. The men's morale would be low and their numbers will be low. So King Roose Bolton marched his men toward Winterfell for a quick surprise attack. The Starks were totally taken by surprise. They had lost too many men and did not even consider a surprise attack from the east. The Bolton laid siege to Winterfell, burning Wintertown to the ground. Their plans until this point worked perfectly, but because of Magna Torrhen's overachieving nature, Winterfell had enough food to last them years. King Roose Bolton had two options: try to either lure out King Rickard or starve him to death. King Rickard knew this, so immediately rationed the food. King Roose did not have the men to attack and siege the mighty castle, so he was stuck. His only move was to starve them. He knew had to finish this quickly or else they would get destroyed by the Stark bannermen. To anger the Starks, he had the Bolton commanders rape the women and pillage the village in front of the castle. Many of the Bolton men looked disgusted at their leaders and their actions. When that didn't have the Stark men charging out of Winterfell, he began to skin the men and left them screaming for help in clear sight and view of the castle. King Rickard controlled his anger and did not respond to the clear insult. So King Roose tried a desperate tactic. He called for a parley. King Rickard said with clear restrained anger, "I am here. What is it you want, you fucking Bolton?" King Roose began to bluff through his teeth and said, "I am willing to let you bend the knee, Stark. I am clearly the superior commander and leader." King Rickard had to be restrained by his Magnas as he tried to punch King Roose in anger and said, "Bend the knee. I have control of most of the north, I hold the greatest keep in all of Westeros, and I have won more battles than you have. I claim the lineage to Garth the Green Hand, the last great king of the first men. I am descended from Brandon the Bloody Blade and Brandon the Builder, the last hero. So why should I bend the knee to you, Bolton, a mere barbarian who still skins and flays men?" When King Rickard was met with silence fuming of the Bolton, King Rickard turned his back and began to ride off. Furious, King Roose broke the ancient law of the parley. He grabbed one of his archer's bow and shot King Rickard's back. One of King Rickard's guards, seeing the danger, rode in front of the arrow and jumped to take the shot. King Rickard instinctively sensed the danger and shot a bolt of ice toward King Roose's bow. Even though King Roose broke the law first, he was unwilling to do the same. The ice snapped the bow in half, but dulled to merely push King Roose onto his ass. King Roose in his anger, chose to try and break through the great gates of Winterfell right away. The same morning, he ordered the siege towers to move forward. The men saw atop the wall saw his king being shot at and rallied the men and commanders. All the men shot up toward the wall and began raining arrows down upon the Bolton men as soon as they got within range. The Bolton attack failed miserably, getting completely destroyed. The arrows killed many men, and their few siege towers, after being riddled by arrows, broke or was abandoned. When King Roose realized this, he ordered the men to retreat back toward the camp. Underscore 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 underscore. 3 moons has passed since the Bolton siege of Winterfell. None of Winterfell's ravens were allowed to reach their destination, but the stray villagers must have reached one of the major keeps by now. Soon the might of the Starks will bear down upon them. But the Boltons had no plan, no way for taking the castle, and the only reason why the Starks had not retaliated was because of the simple fact that they did not have enough men to guarantee a win. King Roose also had to worry about Winter's approach. They had no way of telling. The Starks knew due to their relationship between the children of the forest, but currently, Bolton had no way of knowing. They are northern men and instinctively knew it was coming, however, they just didn't know exactly when. All they knew was that the days have gotten colder and knew that winter would soon be upon them. If they were still fighting this war, they would get completely wiped out without a strong roof over their heads. Underscore 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 underscore. 3 days have passed and King Ricard rode out at night towards the camp and surprised the sleeping guards. Not because he was he attacking, but because he said near the entrance flying the banners of Pali, I am here not to address that false king but to you. Winter is coming. Those are my house's word. It is to forever remind us that winter is always coming and we must prepare for all that comes with it. There is going to be a massive blizzard early tomorrow morning. Should you all still be here, in this temporary camp, you will all get massacred. Now knowing this information, you can join me in Winterfell with a roof over your head with complete amnesty for sacking Wintertown. Or if you have a family and want to go to them, you may. Either way it is my duty to warn you as king in the north end of winter and the first men. With that King Ricard rode back toward the gates of Winterfell, which opened quickly to let King Ricard back in and closed just as quickly. Silence hung in the air and nobody moved, until one brave man said, "Fuck the Boltons, I have a family, a little girl, I have to take care of them, not die in this horrible excuse of a siege." He had sparked the wave of men to pack their things and leave. Not even the threat of being flayed alive from King Roose could deter the men. Some went to Winterfell, but most went back to their homes. It was not known to King Ricard, but most people who were warned about the coming snowstorm, lived through this winter all thanks to King Ricard, earning him the respect of the small folk. King Roose now only had a quarter of the men he had started with, leaving King Roose furious. He had retaliated by flaying the few people who tried to desert at the very end, as King Roose was able to regain his senses and order his commander to capture them. In the early morning, just as King Ricard had said, snow began to fall. But not only that, King Ricard had decided to destroy the army before winter could. They charged out from the gate, and broke through the flimsy defenses King Roose had ordered to be set up. The battle ended with the deaths most remaining loyal Bolton men, and the few men that survived would end up dying of frostbite or hypothermia. King Ricard single-handedly slew King Roose, capturing the red crown of the Boltons and their hereditary skinning knives. It is said that King Ricard had the backing of the old gods in this battle, as King Roose deserved punishment for breaking the Pali, one of the few sins in the eye of the old gods. Rugger Giantsbane killing the High Magna Brandon Hornwood, one of the partakers of rape and torture, earning a name for House Giantsbane. King Roose and High Magna Brandon's head would adorn the walls of Winterfell above the gates. King Roose was succeeded by his son King Royce. King Ricard considered sieging the Dread Fort and sacking it in retaliation, but he decided against it. Ironically, it was the same storm that deterred the Boltons that had deterred the Starks from retaliating further. Underscore 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 underscore. The winter was a relatively short one, ending just before the 4th year. It was very lucky that King Ricard had got a messenger to the other houses warning them not to come to their aid. Should they have come, the men would have most likely have been either killed by the storm or died of hunger, as the Winterfell larder would have run out faster. However, dark times fell upon House Stark, as King Ricard the Strong Wolf died at age 51. His body was buried in the crypts with his ancestors. House Stark was recuperating their strength now. As soon as the days grew warmer, King Benjen sent men out to rebuild Wintertown. It was a sort of blessing for the Starks, as they decided to organize the town better. All the markets were put together, all the housing were put together, blacksmiths and other skilled workers were put together, and all the inns were put together as well. They created the town to surround the walls of Winterfell in a circle. And split the circle in 4, with each quarter having a similarity. This meant that should an influx of men arrive, they could be contained in a quarter of inns, rather than trying to contain them all over the entire town. This took a bit more than a year with the help of a few giants, although most of the work was too small they could help by carrying things. King Benjen, under the advice of Magna Torren, made the most use out of the sacking of Wintertown and used it to improve their city. Underscore 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 underscore. It has been 3 years since the Bolton attack on Winterfell, and King Benjen was planning the retaliation strike against the new Red King. He had gathered all his Magnas, even the ones without land of their own yet. My Magnas, The Dread Fort might be strong, but we have giants and mammoths unlike them, and House Bolton rely on fear more than actual skill in leadership and fighting. Once they are pushed back they will be forced to retreat into their castle. We can then starve them for 3 months and then attacking them when they are weak and have low morale, said King Benjen. That might be true, your grace, but you will not be able to get that amount of men across to the Dread Fort. They will be notified and rally their own bannermen. The Hornwoods, although no longer kings, are still a formidable foe. Not to mention the men they have gotten from the southern part of the Bay of Seals. We must have a plan to destroy those men, said Magna John Umber. Nephew, he is correct. I suggest that you lead an army to lure the Boltons to the lonely hill in which another army will be hidden. The Bait army must contain mammoths and giants or they will never believe that the army is the real deal, said Magna Torren. I agree, but to make it truly believable, I must lead the charge, said King Benjen. Yes, by doing so they will truly believe you are committing to the army, said Magna Jorah Mormont. Very well, my Magnas, I believe we have a plan. Magna Roderick, then you shall be leading the army within the Lonely Hills with the counsel of Magna Jorah. Make sure the smaller army is able to get into the Lonely Hills without getting detected. This is your chance to make a name for you, House Magna Roderick. Heed Magna Jorah, Magna Roderick, he is more experienced than you and you don't want to lose your chance to prove yourself. Magna Domeric Reed, your men are far away, but I would like you to prepare your men just in case. Make sure to be loud about it. We want the Red Kings to know that there are more men coming. They will lose morale knowing that we will have support. The rest of you, my Magnas, shall join me, said King Benjen. Uncle, I need you to remain and rule the north when I am absent. Scoffing Magna Torren says, when am I not, nephew? With a booming laughter from the group left to gather their men. King Benjen turned to Magna Torren. Uncle, while I am gone the north must be running smoothly. There can be no chance for a rebellion. We will not have the men to deal with it or get back fast enough. You must keep the morale high and Wintertown happy, said King Benjen. Don't worry about that, nephew. This is not my first time doing this, you know. Just make sure you arrive back home safely, or your father will have my head in the halls of the old gods. Very well, we will both keep our promises. Underscore 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 underscore. King Benjen rode with the Bait host with his great sword, Ice, strapped across back. The host at the Lonely Hill should be in position. He was informed by his scouts, animals through the use of wargs, that the Red King's younger brother was attempting an ambush. He turned around to the Magnas and said, set up camp here. Slightly closer to the keep than necessary. Make sure that we throw a big feast to make it look like soldiers are drunk. Make sure in the middle of the night, that they dress in the leather armor, and go to the nearest gateway as possible. They will receive further orders from there. Your Grace, may I ask why you are doing this? Asked the Magna Mans Frost. Beating their ambush, it will lead to a moral boost, give us something to mock the enemies. By mocking them, we will be able to better lure out the Boltons. They are prideful creatures, and if we provoke them they will respond. So when we lead them to the Lonely Hills they will be annoyed enough to follow us to the hills, said King Ricard. Very well, your Grace. Magna John, I would like you to do something very important for me, said King Ricard, and he quickly explained his plan and explained Magna Umber's part. I will get my men on it right away, your Grace. Underscore 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 underscore. The Bolton men made their way to the wooden camp walls of the Stark army. They quietly climbed over to the wall, and approached the men guarding the gate in a crouched position, slitting their throats from behind. They died before they could even utter a sound. The two assassins signaled the army to come down to the camp by extinguishing the left torch. The army moved quickly but quietly, and entered the camp, moving to the tents to slay the sleeping men. Most of the army was at every tent ready to set it on fire and slay the men and giants as they come out panicked. The Red King's brother Ramsay Bolton laughing silently in glee. Imagining this battle being called the Raping of the Wolves and being remembered as the leader of the who defeated the Starks. Hoping to be able to skin and flay Benjen Stark, he gave the signal to start. The Bolton army threw the torch on the tent waiting for the men to come out. The few impatient ones just barged in and stabbed the sleeping form of the man, until no blood came out. Confused they moved towards the dead body and saw it was not a dead body, it wasn't never even alive. It was a dummy. The men realizing that they were in a trap rushed out of the tent to warn the men. It's a trap. There is nobody is. The man was interrupted by an arrow sticking out of his mouth. And behind him there were hundreds of fire arrows being shot at the camp from all directions. It was terrible, the arrows looked like a wall of fire. The red slamming into the Boltons and lighting the entire camp of fire. The fire started to cause panic within the men and they all tried to ruin the 3 gates. Bolton men trampled themselves as they tried to leave, shot with arrows, and burned by getting too near the walls. Finally a few Bolton men was able to trickle out of the gate, only to be met with giants, mammoths and men waiting to kill them. That night the grounds near the Long Lake was named Red Lands, because by the end of the battle the grass was covered within the Red King's men's blood. Ramsay Bolton lost his right hand, and his bastard brother, Domeric Snow, had lost an eye. The battle was known as the Battle of Red Rain. The Bolton attacking force was decimated. Completely overrun with only a few stragglers making it back to the Dread Fort. They had left the Dread Fort with an attacking force of 10,000 men and only 2,000 returned. The Bolton heir and his bastard brother had major injuries and were barely surviving. King Royce Bolton saw these men trickle in and he was seething in anger. Throwing everything off of his desk, he yelled at his servant to bring him his 2 brothers. The servant meekly replied, "Are you sure, your grace? They are nearly dead and will require medical aid. Would you like to be flayed? If not, get the fuck out and bring them to me." Underscore 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 underscore. "You called us brother," said Ramsay Bolton with his right hand missing. Their bastard brother, Domeric, was meekly standing next to him. "You fucking idiot. How could you lose so fucking badly? Because of your fucking failure, even the bloody servant is questioning me," screamed Royce Bolton. "Not only that, you lost us 8,000 men and your fucking sword arm. I swear, as soon as I get married and have children, I will skin you. I am sorry brother, I underestimated the young dog. You mock him, yet you got massacred by him. What does that make you, you fucking goat fucker? And you fucking bastard, how the hell did you fail to inform your brother that his plan was fucking idiotic? Then you failed to protect him. I will make you regret the day that my father raped your mother. I apologize, my lord, I will not make the same mistake. The only fucking reason why you are alive is because I need a fucking heir to the Dread Fort. Get out of my fucking sight. You two better be ready to leave within the end of the moon. Underscore 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 underscore. King Benjen Stark was talking with his Magnus. "My Magnus, how many men did we lose?" "We lost around 1,000 men, your grace," replied Magna John. "Your grace, your plan with the dummies was pure genius," said Magna Tormund. "Thank you, Magna Giantsman. Call me Tormund, your grace. We have fought together and watched each other's back, there is no need to stand upon formalities when you don't have to, my king." "Very well Tormund, I will call you Tormund if you call me Benjen. You did well routing the Bolton men. Your son even killed High Magna Hornwood. You shall lead the vanguard with me, in luring the Boltons out. They will likely come out, when their bannermen get here to break the siege of the Dread Fort. We have to make it look like we are actually putting in an effort to siege them. When the bannermen begin their charge at us, we must make it look like we are running. Magna Lun, you must lead the giants out first. From our gathered intel they are very distrustful of non-humans, and will believe that the cowardly giants will fill first. As soon as the bannermen arrive, I will lead the fleeing men. It will be more believable that the men ran away, because their king ran away," said King Benjen explaining the plan. Magna Ruga Sawin, tell the men in the lonely hills that they must look out for the bannerman coming and that will signal for them to prepare for the ambush. I shall do it immediately, your grace. Hi Magna Asher Glover, I need you to do something for me as well. Underscore 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 underscore. King Benjen walked along the men's camp outside of Dreadfort. All of the Magnas were informed of the plans and were to lead their men as soon as he fled. They were now just waiting for the Bolton bannerman to attack. It was going to be any minute now. As soon as King Benjen had that thought, a battle horn rang through the morning sky. All of the men knowing that it was the enemy bannerman, they all prepared themselves. King Benjen jumped on his horse and fled at just the right time, allowing just enough time for most, if not all, the men to be able to leave the camp. The Bolton men, after being fed very little, due to rationing, all wanted to kill the Starks. Ramsay Bolton was eager to make up for his mistake and gain his honor and reputation back. He commanded his bastard brother and his men to leave the Dreadfort to join with the bannerman in crushing the Starks. He himself had to stay back, as he would be useless in battle now with the loss of his sword arm. Your Grace, the Boltons are opening the gates and their men are pouring out of the gates. Their bannermen are coming at us and will reach our position in roughly 5 minutes. Good. They fell for it. Now we have to hope Magnathan and Magna Mormont was able to their part. The Stark men went into the previously decided valley, that had a small entry point but a wide and large valley. The archers from the Stark men ran up the hill, joining the archers on top of the hill. The other infantry went to the other end of the valley, acting like they were trapped. As the Bolton men ran into the valley, Domeric grinned like a maniac and said, "So the dog is trapped. How courageous of you to run away at the sight of the enemy." Seeing as though most of the Bolton army including the bannerman was in the valley, King Benjen said, "I wasn't running, you fool. I was leading you into a trap. Magnathan, Magna Mormont, do it now," leading a soldier blowing the horn, signaling his army. With that the archers appeared out of the small cover and hiding spots. Realizing that they were trapped, Domeric yelled, "Get out! Turn around and leave!" The Bolton men began to push and shove each other to run away, but they couldn't leave, for the Mormonts had their spearmen guard the mouth of the valley. Then they began firing arrows into the Bolton men. The entrance to the valley being small and thin, they could hold of the much bigger force, even with the smaller fighting force, with a well-formed shield wall. The Bolton men got brutalized by the trap set by House Stark. They were massacred by the Stark men. With arrows raining down and being attacked from both sides, they never stood a chance. Domeric, in a flash of cunning, played dead. Because he was covered in blood, the Stark men assumed he was dead and left him alone. As soon as night fell, Domeric would get up and run away. Underscore 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 underscore. King Royce Bolton from his tower saw the Bolton army marching back and smiled. Finally the direwolf was broken. They could now march to Winterfell and claim it for their own. The flayed men was flying proudly in the air as the men made their way back. You could see the dents and cuts on the armor from what must have been a hard fight. He walked down towards the gate and said, "Open the gates. The Bolton men are coming back after skinning a wolf. And get me my damned brother. Inform him that his bastard brother is coming back." The gate opened up, allowing the men to trickle in. He looked at the leader, wearing a similar leather armor as Domeric's. He didn't look like Domeric, but he was familiar. Tall with dark brown hair was a northern look, so that meant nothing to him. He looked bigger than Domeric was, strange. When the man turned to look at him, he was shocked. The man had grey eyes. The only known house with grey eyes were the Starks. With this realization he screamed, "These are not Bolton men. They are Stark men." As soon as Roose said that, the Stark men moved instantly. They cut the chains that opened and closed the main gates. King Royce, who now realized was Magna Tormund, quickly charged and slew his man-at-arms master, who was easily the best swordsman and fighter in the group, while King Benjen charged at him. Even in his young age, he slew 10 men with ease, while making his way over to him. Royce pulled out his own bronze blade, knowing that he couldn't outrun him. Even after engaging the first blow, one could easily see that Benjen was a far superior swordsman and fighter. King Benjen began his training and wielded a wooden sword from the age of 5, training with both Magne Tormund and King Ricard. Even after becoming king, he regularly sparred with multiple guards at a time. On the other hand, King Royce, while 3 years older and taller, had stopped his swordplay practice as soon as he rose to be the Red King. Not only that, King Royce only started to wield a blade at the age of 8 and even then avoided practicing it whenever he could, preferring to practice the bloody practices of House Bolton. After the 15 clashes, Benjen disarmed Royce and knocked him out by slamming the pommel of his blade into his head. He then turned to Magne Theon Isariver and said, "Have him chained. When he wakes up, bring him to me with his brother. Magne Giantspan, please bring the small folk to the execution area. Do not use any force. Inform them that their tormentors will be executed. Underscore 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 underscore." King Benjen stood by the execution stand by the weirwood tree outside of the Dread Fort, sharpening ice sullenly. Ice was bigger than King Benjen himself, but King Benjen knew his duty. The man that passes the sentence should swing the sword. When Royce and Ramsay Bolton was brought forth, he walked over and said, "Royce Bolton, you have fought the one true king of the North, flayed many men, tortured and raped the small folk." Royce begged, "Please my king, I will bend the knee. Just let me live. You can kill my brother and take my sister as a slave. I will do anything, just let me live. Please." King Benjen looked at Royce with disgust and said, "You disgust me. You would sell your family so that you could live. You even offered your own sister as a slave, an act, mind you, that breaks the few laws of the old gods. I spit upon you. I find you guilty of all crimes. I, King Benjen Stark, the first of my name. King of Winter. Magne of Winterfell and King in the North. King of the first men, the children of the forest, and the giants, sentence you to die. Do you have any last words?" Royce said, "No please. I will do anything. Let me take the black. Please." King Benjen listened solemnly and nodded to Magne Tormund. He pushed Royce's head down, and King Benjen swung ice down on King Royce's neck, separating the head from the body. For his last words, he would forever be known as King Royce the Coward Bolton. He then turned to Ramsay Bolton. "You have to answer the same crimes. How do you plead?" He screamed, "Fuck you, you bitch. You think that you are safe? I will kill you, you bastard," while thrashing against his bindings and men. "Very well, I find you guilty of all crimes. I, King Benjen Stark, the first of my name. King of Winter. Magne of Winterfell and King in the North. King of the first men, the children of the forest, and the giants, sentence you to die. Do you have any last words?" "Curse you, you bitch. I will flay you alive. When I get out of this I will kill you." Ignoring those words, he once again nodded to Magne Tormund, who he pushed Ramsay's head down. In a flash, his head joined his brother's. King Benjen turned to the bannerman of House Bolton, and said, "Magnus, I have not come to execute all of you. You were just following your duty in helping your king. I will let you continue to be the Magnus, but only if you swear yourself to me or Magne Tormund Giantspan of the Dread Fort. Magnathan, for your service during this war, I gift you the Broken Branch. You are to build a harbor there to increase trade for the North. May you use it well. I, Magne Eddard Hornwood, pledge myself and my house to Winterfell. We pledge the faith of Hornwood. Hearth and harvest, and I yield up to you, your grace. Our swords, spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I, King Benjen Stark, pledge to grant mercy to your weak, help your helpless, and give justice to all. I accept your oaths. I name you High Magne Hornwood of the Horned Woods. May continue to rule your lands well. I, Magne Benjen Ramsworth, pledge myself and my house to the Dread Fort. We pledge the faith of Ramsgate. Hearth and harvest, and I yield up to you, my Magne. Our swords, spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I, High Magna Tormund Giantsbane, pledge to grant mercy to your weak, help your helpless, and give justice to all. I accept your oaths. I, Magna Jonathan, pledge myself and my house to the dread fort. We pledge the faith of yet built widow's watch. Hearth and harvest and I yield up to you, my Magna. Our swords, spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I, High Magna Tormund Giantsbane, pledge to grant mercy to your weak, help your helpless, and give justice to all. I accept your oaths. I, Magna Tormund Giantsbane, pledge myself and my house to the Winterfell. We pledge the faith of the dread fort. Hearth and harvest and I yield up to you, your grace. Our swords, spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I, King Benjen Stark, pledge to grant mercy to your weak, help your helpless, and give justice to all. I name you High Magna Giantsbane of the dread fort. I accept your oaths. Underscore 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 underscore. Brief excerpt of the timeline of the North, in the Encyclopedia, The History of the Kingdom of the North. 52 years AW, Benjen the Unifier and Alyssa Grey Wolf will have a genius child named Brandon the Scholar. This will start the myth that for every 5 Starks, one must be named Brandon or the wall will fall. Benjen the Unifier orders the building of the Hall of Artifacts in Winterfell, where a great many important artifacts are placed to be remembered and honored. The crown of Garth the Green Hand and the crowns of all of the defeated kings of the North can be found in this hall. 53 years AW, Brandon the Scholar was already speaking, reading and writing learning at a much faster rate than the norm. 64 years AW, at age 11 Brandon the Scholar would be instrumental in the standardization of a new writing system for the first tongue, favoring an alphabetical form of writing rather than runes for every single word, attempting to design a clear easy-to-learn language. It began when he traveled through Wintertown and observed the common folk, unknowingly committing crimes and unable to make their complaints known. After further research, discovered that the inability to read the numerous runes created a disconnect between the nobles and the small folk, who were treated as animals rather than humans, because they had to work the entire day and were unable to even read and write, a skill considered to be basic knowledge for the nobles. He also understood that only having a certain group of people who could read and write their language, made it difficult to record and learn from history, hence, his drive to design a better form of written language. With the small folk being more educated and aware, the North had greater access to scholars, as well as decrease the gap between the Magnas and their people. He would gather great minds all throughout the North and to design this language. He would teach the Northern Magnas and translate the journals of every Stark king before him so that the future generations might have access to it. He would also have every major battle of the North recorded so that the future Starks will learn from their ancestors' mistakes. He also started the tradition of writing down every good idea he would have but could not accomplish. So that in the future should they have the capacity to do so, they could. He would also start the biggest encyclopedia in known world, the history of the Kingdom of the North, starting from Garth the Green Hand. This book would be taken up by future Stark members who vowed to be as honest as possible whilst writing this history book. After the formation of the Order of the High Collar, the safekeeping and filling of the book would be taken up by them. Brandon the Scholar Stark would marry Elenii the Fair Durrandon, young granddaughter of Doran the Godsgrief Durrandon. This would be the first marriage alliance between House Stark and House Durrandon. King Brandon the Scholar would help King Doran Bronze Axe ally with the Children of the Forest to destroy House Storm, who had begun to practice dark necromantic magic. This would make House Durrandon the strongest house in what would become the Stormlands and allow them to conquer the Stormlands. He would teach King Doran the writing of the first tongue, allowing it to spread into the south as well. 79 years AW, Brandon the Scholar helped fund House Grey Wolf's fishing fleet. These fish would feed the North during winter, where game was too hard to find and it was nearly impossible to grow food. 100 years AW, The many primordial magical creatures and gods which once roamed the land disappears during the century of man. All gods have either faded or have moved into the heavenly planes. However, primal creatures such as the direwolves, saber-toothed cats, northern lions, and short-faced bear all survived and thrives in the north and beyond the wall. 110 years AW, Prince Tormund the mathematician Stark standardized mathematics, with the symbols of addition, subtraction, and division created solely by him with the notes of Brandon the scholar for the rest of the North and the world. His line of thinking was similar to his father's in that not having a standardized form of mathematics made it difficult to learn, use, and was generally crippling the North. He had also thought of the metric system, a system of organized measurement, and would be taken up all over the world. Trade grew within the North with these new developments. Items could be better tracked and certain items grew in value due to rarity, or craftsmanship. It also allowed for better architects, and more complex building to be built. 130 years AW, Magnus Giant Sam developed the idea of currency in the form of coins. House Stark, seeing great value in such an idea, immediately took the idea, made 3 coins: tin, bronze, and copper. 20 tin was worth 1 copper, and 20 copper was worth 1 bronze. Most animal pelts fell within the bronze range. Artworks, clothing or woodworks were in the copper area. In the later years when economics was more advanced, a member of House Stark's council, the Master of Coins, always tried to keep track of the coins, trying to make the number stay even, and updating the coins to gold wolves, silver dragons, and copper giants. Knowing that having too many coins will make them lose value, but having too little would cause a shortage in coins. 148 years AW, the 13th Magna Commander of the Wall marries the last White Walker and declares himself the Night's King. His name is scrubbed from all northern texts, even in the history of the Kingdom of the North, except in the personal journals of King Brandon the Breaker. One can still find the crossed-out name in the history of the Kingdom of the North. 153 years AW, Magna Ricardisariva developed the skill of map making. With many tries, they had made the first mostly accurate map of the North and later surrounding lands. It kept bringing profit for the house. They taught their small folk to retrieve information about the surrounding lands in exchange for goods. They soon raised enough money to raise a keep. Their keep was located near the splitting of the River White Knife and close to Whitehall. Built by a few giants and men, their keep was a small-sized one, with their main skill being map-making. In 1570 years House Stark would commission the building of a massive ironwood table map of the entirety of West Eos and Essos to be put into the war chamber. 161 years AW, King Brandon the Breaker with the help of Magna Jormungand the mighty giantsman destroy the Night's King's forces and break the Night's fort. King Brandon the Breaker personally slew the Night's King. Afterwards, he enforces strict laws against the Night's Watch to prevent them from ever rising in such a fashion again. King Brandon the Breaker then renounces his kingship and swore the oaths of the Night's Watch and become the 14th Magna Commander of the Night's Watch. His reasonings are unknown, although it is theorized to create the strong foundations that the Night's Watch will carry for the rest of its existence. 278 years AW, King Harwood the Mad Stark slew 50 powerful wargs, 50 giants, 50 children of the forest and a newborn Stark from a cousin branch. For his tyranny, his son and heir Prince Galbart the Just would rally his men and stage a coup against him. In a single day, King Harwood the Mad was captured and tried. He was sent to the wall to live out his days in shame and punishment. He is considered to be the worst Stark king in history. King Galbart would then organize the making of the famous Throne of Winter with the children of the forest. However, the methods of creation are hidden and none are able to replicate its effects. The king's regent would rule from on the smaller ironwood throne on the left of the king, while the crowned prince ruled from the smaller weirwood throne on the right of the king. These smaller thrones were located steps further down the raised platform, the Throne of Winter. 325 years AW, King Gander the Paranoid Stark, realizing the potential of the area of the neck, hired many giants and men to build a ground keep there only second to Winterfell. He explained his plan to his Magnas and agreed that this could be the strongest line of defense for the north. After 17 years of building, Wolf's Watch was complete with 20 strong and tall towers, connected by a bridge to the central main keep. The walls were high and thick. The same in size and fortifications to Winterfell, the surrounding lands being swampy, making it much harder for men to attack. If they wanted to attack the north by land in large numbers, they had to walk through a singular safe path, allowing it to be easily defensible. It was built to be impossible to take from the south and extremely difficult to take from the north. A third-born son of King Ganda was granted Wolf's Watch, taking on the name Houseguard Starks, granted the title of the Magna of Wolf's Watch, Shield of the North, and later the Masters of the Canal. Their main source of money was the taxing the canal and trade. 453 years AW, King Theon the sister Wolf Stark would conquer the Three Sisters, one of the reasons for his name. After the pirate king Ricard the Bloodship raided all the way to Whitehall, King Theon quickly struck against the Three Sisters, using the navy which Housethan had built up to conquer them. The pirates that lived upon the islands, whilst skilled sailors, had no coordination between each other. This meant Housethan could defeat the pirate navy. The island was quickly overwhelmed, as the pirates' skill lay in the sea. He gifted each island to House Beesthorn, House Whitetree, and House Frost. House Frost was named the High Magnas of the Three Sisters. They were supposed to guard them from the Bronze and Griffin kings of the Vale, and force all ships that passed to pay the toll. Allowing all three houses to rise in power and build their own navy to not rely upon the Thans. House Beesthorn had great areas for fishing, allowing them food for winter and a resource to trade with the nearby Magnas. House Whitetree had extremely fertile lands, especially for the weirwood trees. They grew weirwood trees there, giving the space to the children. They in return of the act of kindness, by teaching them how to make boughs out of the wood, which were currently the greatest tree to make boughs out of. It brought House Whitetree great wealth. By this point most of the children had moved up to the north, or the Neck, as they were truly accepted there, unlike the southern area. In fact, even the children of the forest from the dense northern Essos, had left their forest after being attacked and kicked out of their home. They were called the Ifiquivran, by the people in Essos. House Frost had access to a lot of ice, as their islands were the coldest of the three. Seeing this as an opportunity, House Frost sold ice to the southern kingdoms. Carriages were not fast enough to transport the ice before it melted, but with boats and the location of the island, they were quickly able to sell ice to the Reach and the Stormlands, making a great profit. The other reason for his nickname the Sister Wolf was the fact that he was the only male out of 5 children. House Stark always had more sons than daughters. Normally House Stark only had a daughter in the main line every 3 generations. This was the only generation where 4 girls were born to the main family line. 503 years AW, Queen Kira the Huntress Stark led an exploration in the lands of Always Winter and discovered direwolves' friendliness to House Stark, theorized to be because of the blood of Lupar and Artemis running through their veins. She brought back 500 direwolves. She then put a reward to any hunter who could bring a direwolf alive to Winterfell, as well as creating harsh laws against the hunting of direwolves without justification, such as the death of a human, and without informing House Stark. The Alpha of the pack bonded with Queen Kira Stark, and the Ever Stark after her would be accompanied with a direwolf familiar. They were fiercely loyal and protective, and because of House Stark's gift with the art of warging with an animal, House Stark would receive a powerful guardian. King Wycon the Love-struck Umber would build the Wolf's Pen, a breeding ground for the direwolves, as a gift to Queen Kira. Strength, speed, fighting instincts and intelligence was bred into the direwolves. They did not need to worry about loyalty, as most if not all Starks had a very close bond with their wolf, the Starks raising their familiars from the moment they were born. Direwolves were bred with each other or, in a couple of rare cases, exceptionally smart or big wolves. Every Millennium Warg would go up to the lands of Always Winter to bring back more direwolves and release those which were too feral or unbonding. This was to keep the direwolf gene pool strong and avoid inbreeding. 633 years AW, with the North's growing power and population, the Starks required a method to gather information and police their large nation effectively. To meet the growing demand, Prince Tolman Stark founded the Order of the Green Rangers. It was a reconnaissance policing group, whose job was to capture or kill bandits and lawbreakers which roamed the lands, as well as gather the opinions of the small folk or even infiltrate other kingdoms. Prince Talon borrowed from House Grey Wolf and made the initiation task, having to find a familiar, in the same unbearable condition as a Grey Wolf would have to go through. All members must be a warg. They could be royalty, sons of Magna, or mere commoner, as long as they are gifted in the area of being a warg and judged to be pure of heart by the children of the forest. The children of the forest were accurate around half the time, so it was a good system, but it was not foolproof. The Order would have a few defectors during their illustrious history, using their newfound knowledge and training for their own greed. However, the Order would send their own to eliminate any defectors, killing them with extreme prejudice. Whilst in the Order, the people had to give up all their rights and claims to land. They could be released from service, but only if they were the last of their line. They could, however, marry whomever they liked. There can only be 1,000 members at a time. All members must be a warg. They were trained for years with the bow and was supposed to be able to hit another person's head from a 100-meter distance, while riding. They were trained to blend into their backgrounds and observe, steal, and sabotage the enemy. They would train for a minimum of 5 years, to become a ranger. The title White Ranger is earned through 2 more years on the field or an amazing demonstration of skill / success in a mission. A Grey Ranger requires one to already be a White Ranger and an additional 2 years of service or another demonstration of impressive skill in an important mission. The Green Rangers were the elite. To achieve that rank, one must best a current Green Ranger in an archery competition, as well as melee. There could only ever be 50 Green Rangers at a time. In a wartime situation, these Rangers would each command 20 Rangers. Tolman Stark was the first Green Rangers and started writing the record of the Green Rangers, recording and listing all of the Green Rangers and listing their accomplishments. All members of the Rangers would be retired at the age of 40 and given the option for a small piece of land of their choosing, with the condition that the land remains in the possession of House Stark and their children have no claim to it. 874 years AW, King Kahen the architect Stark asked the children to use their gifts to create a small divide between the lands behind Wolf's Watch. The children, having destroyed the Arm of Dawn and created the Marches of the Neck, told King Kahen that the request could be easily fulfilled. King Kahen had realized how Skardwulf required another source of revenue to maintain such a large castle, as well as realizing the potential of the underdeveloped western coast of the north. Within a week, the ground south of the Wolf's Watch shook, ever so slightly splitting apart. And within the day the shaking stopped, leaving behind a wide but new riverbed. There was very little water within the riverbeds, as neither ends connected to the ocean. He then used the mammoths, giants and men to further dig out the ground. Once confident that the canal could hold many ships, far greater in size than what they have currently, they carefully weakened the parts that connected to the ocean. After 4 long years, the Wolf's Canal was built. After another 10 years, on either side of the Wolf's Canal there were 2 pairs of massive statues built. One pair of statues depicted King Brandon the Builder and King Brandon the Bloody Blade. They faced towards the Iron Islands. King Roderick the Strong Wolf and King Benjen the Unifier faced towards Essos. These statues were massive, and between them there was mechanism inside, that once used, would pull massive enchanted chains out of the water. This made a barrier stopping the progression of any boats. The enchantment on the chain made it impossible to rust and made it 10 times more difficult to break. How Skardwulf manned the towers, that connected to the side of the statue, that held the mechanisms. They had 3 bridges at the thinnest point of the canal, which were manned by the Wolf's Watch. The bridges was just a long drawbridge. How Skardwulf made their revenue by adding a small fee to get across the water, as well as taxing the trade boats that traveled through the canal. Some small folk even started a ferry business, ferrying a small number of people across, but for a much smaller fee. 1021 years AW, King Brandon the Economist faced a problem with the flow of money. He realized that House Stark's collection and hoarding of money could damage the flow of income in the northern economy. He had to inject money back into the stream, in a manner which benefited the North and House Stark. So he hired and ordered the many workers to rebuild Winterfell. Using the designs left by King Kahen the architect and Brandon the builder, he built the greatest castle in the world, over the course of the next 10 years. The castle was made even grander and bigger, with 15 strong tall towers and a new great northern keep. The Hall of Artifacts, the great crypts of Winterfell, the throne room, Great Hall, and many others were expanded. To accommodate these giants, the common areas of Winterfell had to be greatly expanded upon. The old Godswoods was completely walled off and was for the sole use of the royal family. A new Godswood was grown for the small folk of Wintercity. The rich and the poor alike had the same access to these woods and allowed greater interaction between them. King Brandon also planted a weirwood tree by the execution grounds, so that the blood of the convicts could give themselves back to the old gods and earn forgiveness. King Brandon the economist would start the tradition of every 500 years commissioning the building of a great wonder or rebuilding / expansion of the Stark lands to inject the much of the taxes collected by House Stark. 1132 years AW, King Boromir the Gregarious befriends a small clan of giants and convinces them to slowly give up their nomadic ways and live near Winterfell. They become the legendary gatekeepers of Winterfell, a part of the defense against enemy attackers, with the clan Gunrug becoming a permanent defense of the capital of the north. This division of giant guards leads to greater security for the Starks. This allows House Stark to also command the only division of mammoth riders not under the control of the giants. 1236 years AW, King Brandon the Stone Wolf Stark prepared the north for war against the Skagos. The three sisters prepared their navy, and so did House Thorn. Using these boats they carried giants, mammoths and men to crush the three barbaric houses within Skagos. House Hornfoot was given Skagos to rule over it, with the three houses as their bannermen. The island had some rich fishing lands as well as being abundant in seals, which had a lot of fat being very useful for making candles. With that conquest all of the clans of the first men, who would have been stuck on the other side of the wall, had keeps of their own and helped with the northern economy, as well as fulfilling House Stark's promise to those original clans. 1394 years AW, King Ctmus the Spymaster would commission High Magna Hojan the Wargmaster Reed to start the King's Men. It was the greatest spy network in the known world. Using wargs, House Reed would be able to have animal spies and wargs all over the world and be able to latch upon all other spy networks of the other great houses. They often guided ravens to their lands to glean hidden information in meetings or private rooms. Nobody but House Reed and House Stark would learn how the King's Man was gathering their information. The Kingsmen would sell their information to anybody willing to pay a price and greatly manipulate the world politics. The King's Man directly answered to House Reed and in turn House Stark, and would never be used against House Stark. It brought great wealth to House Reed, allowing them to expand their magical moving castle and allow them to rise in status as one of the most powerful house in the north and the world. 1473 years AW, House Stark was able to help House Ryswell breed the best war horses in the north and one of the best in the rest of the world. With long-term investments and nearly 1,500 years of hard work, House Ryswell bred Zasses, Dothraki stallions, Dornish Sandsteed, and Penthosy Warmount to breed the northern war horse. This brought House Ryswell wealth and led to the north having another export. The northern cavalry would be equipped with northern war horses. 1532 years AW, Queen Galadriel the Engineer Stark, a once-in-a-million-year genius, would develop engineering and physics as a field of study. Writing many books on engineering and leaving a great many books filled with mathematical equations and designs that nobody would understand for thousands of years, particularly designs for a flotation device, advanced weaponry, etc. She painted artworks more beautiful than any other and ruled as one of the greatest rulers the North has ever had. She would work to change the inheritance laws from agnatic cognatic primogeniture to an absolute cognatic primogeniture. Due to Queen Cassandra and her ancestors' brilliance and the spearwives culture of the North, it would be accepted without much issue in the next 10 years. This change in the northern culture allowed the North access to the talents of 50% of the population, which were being ignored in the other civilizations of the world. It is during Queen Galadriel rule, the North would come in contact with the Gisclari Empire. The Empire, having heard of the hardy folk with talents living in the Kingdom of the North, preformed a slave raid the small village on the eastern coast, raping the women, taking of children, and the slaughter of men. As they sailed away 2 days later, after having looted and captured everybody, Queen Galadriel brought the might of the North down upon these raiders. Her rage was legendary, having the genitals of the rapist removed and sent to the Gisclari Empire while their heads adorned the coasts of the North. This would anger the Gisclari Empire, who would completely cease trade with the North as well as plan an attack against them. These plans would never come to fruition as another threat rose in Essos. 1765 years AW, Magna Eddard the philosopher Whitestok would form the field of philosophy, pondering upon many of life's greatest questions. This interest in the philosophy would lead to the North's greater focus upon the future and long-term investments. This, when paired with the inevitable coming of winter, lead to the North focus upon long-term investments to assist them in their time of need. 1843 years AW, Prince Damon the librarian loved to spend time within the library, but was finding it overcramped and overflowing with books collected over their nearly 2,000-year rule. So to compensate, he would spend 10 years of his life designing and building the greatest library in the known world, far greater than the library being built in Old Town. It would be known as the Great Library of Winterfell, incorporating the designs of both the Citadel of the Order of Maestus, his own, and a northern design. He would study the architecture of the Giscari, Andal, Tall Men, and many more, being inspired by many of the architecture of the other countries. The Great Library of Winterfell would house thousands of scrolls, books, and tablets, with room for expansion as well as more storage. 1899 years AW, King Brandon the Shipwright in tandem with Magna Antioch Greystoke would build a massive navy on the western shore of the north, to combat the constant raiding from the Iron Islands on the western shore, under the command of House Grey Wolf. 1929 years AW, King Brandon the Burner Stark led the invasion of the Iron Islands after the Ironborn tried to kidnap his brother's betrothed, Magna Lyanna Mormont. He was able to bring in the Eastern Navy through the canal as well as mobilize the Giants. With his father's Western fleet and his vassals, with the first major battle being the massive sea battle at by the Salt Spear against the Ironborns. The Stark would experience a massive victory, and after burning all of the damaged captured Ironborn longships, the bay's name would become Blazewater Bay. They landed Black Tide Islands. They quickly moved on to Orkmont, then splitting up to attack Old Wyk and Harlaw at the same time. By 3 years they had controlled all islands except the island of Pike. And with the men all ready, they attacked Pike from all fronts, quickly overwhelming the Greyrons. They all but wiped out the Greyron line, with King Royce taking Yara Greyron as his wife and made the Greyjoys the High Magna of the Sunset Isles, granting them the title the Manor Reaver of Pike and Shield of the Sunset. They were told that they could continue their pillaging ways, as long as they didn't attack the Northern Kingdom and didn't take slaves. The Greyjoys agreed to these terms and soon became one of House Stark's greatest allies. King Brandon the Burner would change his title to become the High King in the North and the Isle. The embodiment of winter and the storm. High Magna of Winterfell. King of the First Men, Children of the Forest, and the Giants, and Magna Protector of the Realm. 1939 years AW, House Greystoke, a cadet branch of House Whitestoke and Grey Wolf, believed themselves more worthy of the throne of Winter and would declare its rebellion against House Stark after the death of King Brandon the Burner. With the support of Bolton's Blood Company, founded by the bastard Bolton who escaped the destruction of his house, their vassals, and the support of an offshoot branch of House Flint, and the first Andal warlord, Argo 7 Star, to make a guerrilla war against House Stark, killing thousands of civilians. 1945 years AW, House Greystoke would be defeated by House Stark, King Ignotus the Strange Wolf, who would execute all males from House Greystoke over the age of 13, sending the rest towards the wall and having all of the females marry into different loyal families. The Magna of House Greystoke, Magna Theon the Turncloak, would be given a blood eagle, a rare ceremony of execution for breaking one of the old god's most sacred rules, in front of the Winterfell Weirwood execution grounds to earn forgiveness for the rest of the Greystokes. All of House Greystoke vassals would be stripped of their rank, home, and titles. The Blood Company would run away before the false bastard Bolton line could be stamped out. Magna Harlon Whitestoke would slay Green Man Burn Greystoke, once considered one of the greatest swords in the north, cementing their allegiance to House Stark and earning forgiveness for the insolence of their cadet house. Argus 7 Star was able to escape back to the Andalos, where he would continue his family line and breed ambitions within his sons to take the north for themselves. 1975 years AW, Argus the Warrior reincarnate 7 Star, son of the original Argus 7 Star who had attacked the north before, came back with even more Andals attempting to escape the ever-growing power of the Valyrians. House 7 Star was one of the greatest and purest Andal nobilities, second only to House Arryn, and their house had amassed more Andal warriors than any other Andal invasion of Westeros. Argus the Warrior reincarnate, who was considered to be the greatest Andal warrior of all time, met King Brandon the Bloody Wolf on the field of battle. After dozens of skirmishes, surprise attacks, naval battles and the like by Old Castle, Argus had slain a half-dozen northern Magnas such as Magna Mormont, Umber, and Giantsburn, whilst Brandon had himself slain the other 6 Andal warlords who had supported Argus. When Brandon and Argus met on the battlefield, it is said that their blades clashed for hours, reaching well over 1,000 clashes. Each warrior were littered with minor cuts and bruises and were breathing heavily. It is said that Argus met his doom, when he overswung and received a blow to the jaw that knocked him out cold. With the fall of Argus, the Andals attempted to surrender, but Brandon refused, citing their crimes in cutting and burning of the weirwood tree by Old Castle. It is said that Argus and his surviving Andal invasion force was beheaded by the newly planted weirwood sapling, soaking the tree in Andal blood, earning himself the name the Bloody Wolf, and thus ending the Andal invasion of the north. Underscore 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 underscore. During this time House Stark was not the only house facing the Andal invasion. The Vale was ruled by House Royce, the Bronze King of the Vale, and House Griffin, the Griffin Kings of the Vale. It was a hard fight for them, but the bronze runic armor had helped immensely in fighting the other petty kings, and House Royce began to rise above House Griffin, slowly overtaking them in land and men. During the period of the Andal invasion of Westeros, the warlord Artis Arryn led the Andals to land in the Vale. Using assassinations and intrigue, Artis Arryn quickly destroyed most of House Griffin and claimed their seat, the Eyrie, Gates of the Moon, and the Bloody Gate. House Griffin would first escape to the Westerlands, before being chased out in 4 generations for gathering too much power. They would then move to the north where they were welcomed. House Griffin's crown would be added to the halls of artifacts in Winterfell in exchange for being allowed into the north. Using the lands of House Griffin, House Arryn began their war with House Royce. While House Royce had more land, House Arryn had more men and better intrigue. King Robar Royce warred upon one Andal warlord at a time, as the Andal warlords had begun their petty rivalries and infighting, the same infighting that had plagued the first men and allowed the Andals to seize power. King Robar won many battles, defeating the Andal King of the Fingers, retaking of Gulltown, the Hammer of the Hills, and many more. However, his brilliance led to his downfall, as the Andals, fearing King Robar enough, ultimately reacted and chose to unite under King Artis the Falcon Knight Arryn. The two armies fought in the Battle of 7 Stars. According to singers, Robar's army threw back 6 Andal charges, but the 7th one broke through. Nevertheless, Robar ordered a counter-attack and led the charge himself, with his champions at his side, slaying Torgold Tolet. Then he spied the Falcon Knight's armor across the field and spurred toward him. King Robar managed to slay King Artis screaming in victory, but then 500 knights charged down the slopes of the Giant's Lance to take Robar's disorganized host in the rear. Leading the attack was a champion in silvered steel, with a moon and falcon on his shield and wings upon his war helm, the true Sir Artis, whereas the man King Robar had slain was a mere decoy. King Robar and 30 lords supporting him died. House Arryn, the oldest descendant to Huger of the Hill, purest of Andal nobility, claimed the Vale for himself, with House Royce as his vassal, forcing the boy lord to renounce the old gods, and abandon his first men heritage. Lord Harwin the Broken Royce would not be allowed to rule Runestone, House Arryn having appointed a regent to rule in his name. Lord Harwin was held as a guest in the Eyrie, constantly being educated in the Andal ways. Lord Harwin would be forced to marry Artis' younger sister, and their child was taken from Lord Harwin to be educated by Artis. It was only Artis Royce who was allowed to return to Runestone and take control over his ancestral home. House Arryn now claimed the title King of the Vale, the Fingers, and the Mountains of the Moon. King of the Andals and First Men. It would take House Arryn 4 generations to consolidate and secure their rule as a great house of Westeros. Underscore 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 underscore. House Gardener, the other descendants of the last High King of the First Men, Garth the Green Hand, had conquered the entire of the fertile lands the Reach, allowing them access to more fighting men than any other great kingdom. They were even able to make powerful houses, such as House Hightower, bend the knee. The greatest of the Gardeners was King Garth the Golden Hand Gardener, for his deeds both in war and in peace. Ascending to the Oaken seat at age 12, Garth ruled for 81 years, of which less than 10 were spent at war. In the few times Garth Golden Hand did go to war, he utterly trounced his adversaries. As a boy he defeated an invasion of Dornishmen by King Ferris Fowler, then drove the Ironborn who had begun to settle in the Shield Islands and fortified them with men from the Reach. Garth Goldenhand defeated the alliance between the King of the Rock and Storm King, defeating both in the Battle of Three Armies, and dictated the boundaries of their three kingdoms in the aftermath. However, no matter how skilled his prowess in the battlefield was, Garth's greatest accomplishment was giving his people 3/4 of a century of golden peace, bringing unprecedented prosperity in the Reach. Garth's rule became known as the Golden Reign and was when the Reach truly flowered. During the Andal invasion, the three Sage Kings, or the three Coward Kings as the North calls them, began the assimilation of the Reach into the Andal culture in 3 generations. This would be the quickest assimilation done over an entire kingdom. This would begin the northern hatred of the Reach during this time, for they were responsible for the genocide of the children of the forest in the Reach. Underscore 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 underscore. The many Storm King of House Durrandon conquered the Stormlands and even the Riverlands, expanding their power of the Storm Kings greatly. King Doran the Fair brought the Isle of Tarth and Estermont into their rule as a vassal, changing their royal title to Magnus of the Storm and King of the Stormlands. King Doran the Mighty expanded their lands to Blackwater Rush, and conquered Duskendale and Maidenpool. His great-great-grandson King Quilton the Conqueror conquered the Riverlands with the help of House Stark for another marriage, gaining the title King of the Rivers. House Durrandon became one of the most powerful great house of Westeros with their conquests. Their alliance to the Stark growing their wealth and cementing their power. During the Andal invasion, King Munfride the Faithslayer Durrandon was finally defeated by the 7 warlords of the Holy Brotherhood at the Battle of the Bronze Egget in combat. King Munfride having been slain by one of the 7 warlords who stabbed in his back after yielding. Crowned Prince, now King Doran showed the meaning of his house words and destroyed the 5 remaining Andal warlords. His rule should have been filled with peace and prosperity after such a victory, however, he faced more tragedy as King Maldon the Kinslayer, his younger brother, betrayed him. King Maldon after marrying a Andal bride overthrew his brother and slayed him in battle. King Doran was first locked out of Storm's End, after returning from the Battle of the Kingswood. Prince Maldon slaughtered all loyal Durrandon guards and filled the castle with Andals. King Doran would be put at a disadvantage from this point on, as King Maldon has fresh troops from the Andals as well as the traitorous Bannerman, who had betrayed their loyalty to him. House Stark, alerted to this terrible betrayal, would attempt to assist King Doran gain control of the Stormlands. However, it took them a moon to receive news of the betrayal, 3 moons to gather the men, and another 2 moons to reach the Stormlands. During that time, although King Doran had fought valiantly and with greater skill, King Doran had been slain by King Maldon. It was through treachery, as King Doran, refusing to slay his brother, turned around in victory after having forced him to yield, when King Maldon stabbed him in the back, mirroring the death of his father. Crown Prince Theon would land a fortnight later and hear of this news. Enraged, Theon would beat back the Andal men and sent them running back to Storm's End. Theon, knowing his friend would not receive a proper burial, took his body back into Winterfell, where he was buried in the Great Crypts. House Stark would inform all other houses in Westeros of King Maldon's actions and name him Kinslayer. House Stark declared that any alliance the North had with the Stormlands is now over, and House Stark considered the current House Durrandon no Durrandons at all. The Storm Crown, worn since King Doran the God's Grief, was placed in the Hall of Artifacts along with their ancestral warhammer. King Doran the Faithful was one of 2 non-Starks ever to be buried in the Great Crypts of Winterfell. Thus, the Stormlands fell to the Andal invasions, assimilating to the Andal culture and abandoning the culture of the First Men. The Stormlands would face unrest for 6 generations before becoming completely Andal. Underscore 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 underscore. House Casterly fell to House Lannister, the newest the Great House. Lan the Clever Hill, a genius bastard of House Gardener, had driven the cruel tyrannical King Jaime Casterly insane for the Casterly Bannerman. He confused the sleeping Castalis by whispering threats, howling like a demon, stealing treasures from one brother and placing them in the bedchamber of another, and rigging traps through the forgotten hidden passages of Casterly Rock. Thus, he set the Castalis at odds with one another and convinced them their seat was haunted. Due to stress and infighting, the Casterly line soon lost most of its members and Lan took the seat as his own. 3 members of House Casterly is thought to have escaped the castle, although their line is lost in history. In return House Casterly's vassals swore fealty to Lan. However, Lan only had one daughter before becoming infirm. The Andal invaders led by Tytos Star captured and conquered half of the Westerlands. Lan, once again using his brilliance, convinced Tytos Star marry his daughter and taken on the name Lannister, named after himself. After many months of careful diplomacy, intrigue, and show of force, Tytos agreed, thereby forming House Lannister the Kings of the Rock. Thus, the Westerlands technically fell to the Andal invasions, assimilating to the Andal culture and abandoning the culture of the First Men, over the course of 4 generations. Underscore 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 underscore. There were 3 powerful houses in Dorne. King Arthur of House Dane, King of the Stony Dornish and King of the Red Mountains. There was King Coran of House Martell, King of the Salty Dornish and King of the Broken Arm. And finally there was King Doran of House Euronwood, King of the Sandy Dornish and the King of the Desert. Those 3 houses fought one another, never quite gaining the upper hand. When the Andals came, House Martell fell first, as House Martell often traded with Essos and already had hundreds of Andals within his lands. With the kidnapping of his heir, House Martell quickly joined the Andals and assimilated to their culture. House Euronwood fell next, as the Andal forces of House Durrandon and House Martell worked together to convert House Euronwood into an Andal house. After 5 years of warring, House Euronwood finally gave up their First Men culture and joined the Andal culture. Soon both House Euronwood and House Martell pressured House Dane to switch. However, House Dane remained steadfast as the First Men, beating back dozens of attacks by House Euronwood and House Martell with the help of House Stark, who refused to allow another great house and ally to fall under Andal rule. It would take them 20 years before they would came to an armistice. House Dane in return for peace would allow Andals into his lands. They would however not need to convert their own culture. This armistice was agreed upon and the Andal invasions of Westeros were officially over. Underscore 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 underscore. The North was prospering, under good, effective, and honest ruling. The North had great trading deals with House Dane and many of the rulers in Essos. They had good lands, and the strongest army and navy of all the many kingdoms of Westeros. King Thena Stark was having a peaceful day, until a house from the Westerlands, Vale, and the Reach came to the north, and sought an audience with King Thena. They met in the throne room, and very interesting proposition was made to them by the 3 houses. Magna Pevra was an old house from the Vale, but they were attacked for their refusal to change their religion from the old gods to the 7. They were attacked and they barely survived. They came to seek refuge, in return for information which may be very useful to the north. King Thena was going to offer them refuge anyway, agreed very quickly. I shall give you lands in the mountains of the north, you can mine the gems and metals, and sell it as raw material. You will be High Magna of the mountains. Now you must keep your end of the bargain. Your Grace, the Andals and the 7 plan to conquer all of Westeros, and convert all religion into the faith of the 7. The Artisarin was already making plans to take the 3 sisters. They have murdered most if not all the children south of the Neck, and burned all of the weirwoods in the Vale. The only lands that remain safe is the Isle of Faces. They did what? How dare they? They think that they can mess with the North and the Old God. The Old Gods have proven their existence through the breaking of the arm, the hammers of the water, and their help in the creation of the Wolf Canal. Yes, Your Grace, I completely agree, so does all of the First Men with me. They were planning on hiding in the mountains and slaying any Andal they came upon. Instead I convinced them to join me. They shall be your small folk as they already knows how to survive in the harsh mountains, Magna Peveril. I believe there are already some clans in the mountains known as mountain clans. You are to gain their allegiance and create your keep. I will be willing to pay for 30% of it with some minor interest. It can be like the one you left behind in the Vale. Thank you, Your Grace, said Magna Peveril, turning around and started discussing with his men. Lord Griffin was a relatively new house from the Westerlands, and after offending the Lannisters barely left the Westerlands from the Lannister assassination attempts. He stepped forwards and said, Your Grace, if you allow me to also settle in the mountains of the north, I can start a mining operation within those mountains. They must contain some silver, gems or some kind of precious metal. Those mountains are almost the size of the Westerlands. That is a very good idea. Magna Peveril, you are to give half of your mountain clan for House Griffin. They will be used to living in such areas already. House Stark shall provide you with 1,000 small folk and pay for 30% of your keep with some interest as well, for one condition. Do you follow the old gods? Of course, Your Grace. I am a member of House Griffin. While we have lost a lot of power, we used to be the Griffin King of the Vale and could trace our lines for generations through the first men. Then rise Magna Godric Griffin. I shall provide you the 1,000 small folk by the end of the week, and you shall also take 10 children of the forest who fled from the south and 10 children of the forest from the north. They shall plant a weirwood tree in your godswood and re-educate you in the ways of the old gods. You are to swear yourself to House Peveril, and teach him how to mine from those mountains. Thank you, Your Grace. Finally Lord Laurel Mandaly of House Mandaly stood up, said, Your Grace, I am an exiled house from the Reach. I insulted the House Gardener and King Mel the Meek for his weakness, and I told him I shall never serve a weakling like him. He merely exiled my family from the Reach. So I took all my wealth, naval power, and family and came here, the strongest of the kingdoms, in hoping that I would be allowed a new home. I could offer you the knowledge of how to farm better, and to make things such as fertilizers and how to make iron weapons. I shall allow you to settle on my land if you meet a few of my conditions. First, you must convert to the old gods, and you and your children shall be educated by the children in the ways of the old god. Second, your heir and his heir must marry a northern woman. Third, you must teach us what these fertilizers and iron weapons are, before you leave for the end of the White Knife River. You will be allowed to build a harbor there. It should bring you plenty of gold and set your castle upon what was once the seat of House Greystoke. Should you hold up your end of the bargain, I shall offer even more to you, such as your own bannerman. Before you can begin working on your land, you are to swear your oaths of fealty to House White Estoke. I shall graciously accept, Your Grace. Good, Magna Laurel Mandaly. My smiths shall meet you tomorrow afternoon, an hour after lunch. My farmers shall meet you for these fertilizers an hour after you meet the smiths. I shall have my men ready with the material by then. Thank you, Your Grace. Brother, would you please write a message to Magna Waymon Locke, to swear himself to Magna Mandaly? Don't send it yet, we have yet to see if Magna Mandaly can hold his end of the bargain, and send out a message to Magna Brandon White Estoke. Inform him that he has a new vassal. Magna Peveril and Magna Griffin, should you be successful in building your lands, you can promote people into Magnas to run different parts of your regions. You will be able to have your own bannerman soon enough. I, Magna Godric Griffin, pledge myself and my house to Death's Rest. We pledge the faith of Godric's Hollow. Hearth and harvest, and I yield up to you, my Magna. Our swords, spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I, Magna Ignotus Peveril, pledge to grant mercy to your weak, help your helpless, and give justice to all. I accept your oaths, said Magna Ignotus, before turning to King Thena and getting down to his knee and throwing his sword to King Thena's feet. I, Magna Ignotus Peveril, pledge myself and my house to the Winterfell. We pledge the faith of Death's Rest. Hearth and harvest, and I yield up to you, Your Grace. Our swords, spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I, King Thena Stark, pledge to grant mercy to your weak, help your helpless, and give justice to all. I accept your oaths. underscore 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 underscore. King Thena the Diligent worked hard to bring the North up to a higher standard than the Andals. They learned and taught all their smiths how to forge iron, and House Stark forged a new great sword made of enchanted iron. The better the material, the more powerful the enchantment held and could be weaved. The original celestial bronze weapon was put into the Hall of Artifacts. The children decided to name the enchanted iron, Frost Iron, permanently replacing the celestial bronze. Only the High Magners of the North wielded Frost Iron. Every house but House Giantsbane, House Mormont, and House Stark, wielded a longsword. House Giantsbane choosing to wield dual axes, House Mormont chose to buy a bastard sword, and House Stark its great sword. The Northern army was prepared to respond at any moment. The king's men were sent to infiltrate the Westerlands and the Stormlands. Underscore 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 underscore. House Durrandon lost power in the Riverlands, with House Mud of Old Stones revolting against the Storm King and declaring themselves the king of the river and the hills. House Mud was able to achieve such a victory due to the funding and resources they secretly received from House Stark. They claimed descent from the lost House of Teak, the last king of the river and the hills. House Mallister and House Trident declared for them, as they were not happy with the taint of kinslaying. With their help, House Mud subdued House Tully and House Blackwood. House Bracken, also seeing the House Durrandon lost interest in the Riverlands, declared themselves king of the Trident. This would start a war with House Mud and House Bracken, with neither side gaining large ground. Underscore 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 underscore. House Stark. The king in the north and the Isles. Magna of Winter and the Sea. High Magna of Winterfell. King of the first men, children of the forest and the giants. They rule the largest region of Westeros. It is said the north could fit all other regions within the north and still have some space left over. The Starks are one of the oldest families in the known world. Only matched by the Gardeners and Durrandons. They are the descendants of the legendary figures such as High King Garth Greenhand of the First Men, the Grey King of the Isles, Storm King Doran the God's Grief, and King Brandon the Bloody Blade, all of which had married goddess. They claim to be descended from the goddess Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, moon and snow, Elenii, the goddess of the storms, Amphitrite, the goddess of the tide, waves and rain, and finally Ilúpar the she-wolf. They also can claim descent of the great House Greyron, which were absorbed into House Stark through the last female line. House Greyron ruled the Iron Islands for hundreds of years before being absorbed into House Stark. Winterfell is the mightiest castle of the known world. It holds the highest towers of a castle and the thickest walls. It holds the Street of Kings, Great Library, the University of the North, the Hall of Thousand Lights, ancient crypts of the King of Winter, the Artifact Hall, and many other great wonders of man. Their house was founded by King Brandon the Bloody Blade Stark, second son of Garth Greenhand. King Brandon fought in the War for Dawn against the White Walkers and Whites as the first war leader. He slew many undead giants, Whites, and White Walkers. His son, King Brandon the Builder, the second and last war leader of the War for Dawn, raised Winterfell, the Wall, Hightower and Storm's End, as well as influencing most of the castles found in Westeros. All four are known as one of the mightiest structures in the known world. Other Stark kings have built great structures, such as Wolf's Watch, the Wolf Canal, and the great statues guarding the canal. House Stark could be credited for the measurement system, most mathematical advancements, currency, writing, food, beverages, and a plethora of others. House Stark had beaten the Warg King, Red King, Barrow King, King of the Rills, and King of the Neck, and King of the Hearth, for their position as king in the north, and the King of the North and Winter. Defeating House Greyron for their title of King of the Isle. They have defeated countless Andal invasions, and many Targaryen dragon conquests. They wear the only known crown of Valyrian winter steel crown, which had a snarling wolf's head, with its eyes set in rubies and surmounted by Valyrian winter steel spikes in the likeness of longswords carved with runes of the first men. They still have all of the crowns of their defeated opponents in the artifact hall. They have an ancestral great sword named Ice. It is forged out of frost iron, which is imbued with the magic of the children of the forest. Whilst not the original blade, its namesake has killed both children of the forest, men, giants, and white walkers. All members of House Stark are fluent in the Old Tongue, Mother Tongue, the Common Tough, and High Valyrian. They are a firm believer in the old gods, like all other houses in the north, and have great magical abilities. Abilities such as warging, green seeing, and the control over the element of ice and winter, a magical ability that no other house in the world holds. The faith of the Seven was stamped out of the north, due to the many problems caused by religion in coexisting with other religions, unlike the drowned god, the many-faced god, and etc. House Stark has shaped the world for 2,000 years, directly responsible for many of the advancements in the world, a legacy no other house in the world can claim. House Stark is currently the most powerful house in the known world, with the biggest, richest, and the most powerful kingdom, only comparable to the likes the entire newly formed Valyrian Empire. Underscore 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 underscore. House Durrandon, King of the Stormlands, Lord of Storm's End and King of the Andals and the First Men. They currently rule the third largest kingdoms. One of the oldest houses in the known world, tied with House Stark and House Gardener. Storm's End is one of the most powerful and large fortresses. It has magical runes of protection, carved by the children of the forest, making it very difficult to siege and take, and was designed by the legendary figure Brandon the Builder. Founded by Doran Godsgrief, who raised the castle Storm's End 5 times before raising a castle that could withstand the winds of the gods themselves, with the help of King Brandon the Builder, completing his task in earning the favor of the storm god for his daughter, Elenii, hand in marriage. House Durrandon had to beat the House Estermont, House Dondarrion, and House Connington for their rule of the Stormlands. They wear a gold crown in the shape of stag antlers. Their original crown of bronze and ancestral hammer is in the Winterfell, in the Hall of Artifacts, after Crown Prince Theon the Hungry Wolf failed to protect his friend and ally. They have switched to believe the faith of the Seven, after King Moldon the Kinslayer slew his own brother King Doran the Faithful to rule the Stormlands with the Andals. Underscore 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 underscore. House Gardener, King of the Reach, Lord of Highgarden and King of the Andals and the First Men. They currently rule the second largest kingdom. Highgarden was a large fortress, built over the many years of the Gardener kings. The castle has incorporated many gardens inside its wall, allowing for the castle itself to produce food, and is often considered to be one of the greatest castles in the world. The house was founded by Garth the Green Hand, the last High King of First Men. House Gardener beat King of the Arbor and the King of the Old Town in the field of battle. They wear a crown of roses made of gold. It was a very extravagant crown, fitting of House Gardener. They were very extravagant and very proud of their heritage. The crown of Garth the Green Hand of never-dying vines and flowers are in the Hall of Artifacts of Winterfell, when Garth went up north to seek forgiveness from his son and grandson. House Gardener has made 97 attempts at stealing the crown back, but has never succeeded. They switched to the faith of the Seven as soon as the Andals arrived, abandoning their First Men culture through the Three Sage Kings, or as they are known in the north, the Three Coward Kings. They ordered the few children found to be killed. They burned the many weirwood trees, even the one personally grown by Garth the Green Hand. They took House Tyrell, a minor Andal house, as their stewards. Underscore 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 underscore. House Lannister, King of the Rock, Lord of Casterly Rock and King of the Andals and the First Men. They currently rule one of the richest kingdoms. One of the second youngest great houses, formed only a few decades before the Arrin of the Vale. Casterly Rock was an impressive structure both above and underground. It was a castle built on top of a massive mountain with the greatest gold veins in existence. The castle had the claim of the highest structure in the world, due to the towers being built way above the ground atop mountains. When a mine was cleared, it would be repurposed, either as storage, dungeons or etc. This means while Casterly Rock is an impressive castle above ground, their main size comes from their rooms dug into the mountain itself. The house is technically founded by Lan the Clever, a genius who won the allegiance of the Lords of the Westerlands and stole Casterly Rock from House Casterly, then married his only daughter to an Andal warlord Tytos under the conditions that they take the house name Lannister. Lan drove every member of House Casterly insane, stealing their keep, and earning the allegiance of the other lords by killing the tyrant King Tywine Casterly. They wear a crown of gold made of roaring lions. It is also very extravagant and comfortable to wear as a show of their wealth. House Lannister being technically founded by Lan the Clever means that House Lannister could only have existed through the brilliance of Lan. However, the first real king with the name Lannister was King Tytos Lannister. House Lannister was founded with Andal assistance and have always followed the faith of the Seven who are one. Underscore 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 underscore. House Arrin, King of the Mountain and the Vale, Lord of the Uri and King of the Andals and the First Men. They are the only true great house of pure Andal descent and can claim the bloodline of the purest Andal nobility. They are the youngest great house of Westeros. The Uri is built atop the steepest mountain of the Vale. It was built by the Griffin King of the Vale and who was forced them to take shelter in Westerlands by Artis Arrin. The Uri is said to be nearly impossible to take in a traditional sieging manner, because one must trek up the steep mountain, while having arrows shot and rocks dropped upon them. The house is founded by Artis Arrin, who lead the Andals to the Vale and lead them to victory against House Royce, the Bronze Kings, and House Griffin, the Griffin Kings. Artis Arrin was a very skilled knight and a fast and precise sword fighter, known for his falcon armor. House Arrin beat House Griffin and House Royce for their right to rule the Vale. They wear a crown of iron, made in the shapes of falcons in flight. They have always been the followers of the faith of the Seven and lead the Andal invasion of the Vale. Underscore 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 underscore. A /n I will not mention the houses in Dorne or the Riverlands as they have not conquered the entirety of Dorne and Riverlands respectively, and therefore not a great house of Westeros yet. Underscore 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 underscore. King Tytos Lannister knew the North's strength was growing. It was theorized that they could currently match 2 of the 6 kingdoms alone with ease. At the rate they were growing they will be able to match 3 with ease by the next 100 years. He knew that he would need to curb his neighbor's strength, and his only chance for ever taking the North was with the support of all the other great House of Westeros, House Durrandon, House Arrin, and House Gardener. He penned a letter to each of the kings and sent out a raven to Storm's End, the Uri, and Highgarden, asking for a meeting at Casterly Rock. Underscore 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 underscore. After 4 moons, the Storm King, the King of the Mountain and the Vale, and the King of the Reach meet in the Casterly Rock. Casterly Rock was a massive structure built to be grander than any other keep. It is said only Highgarden could match its beauty, and only the Uri can match it in fortifications in the south. Their great wonder of man, the Hall of Gold was jaw-dropping, with the very hall having lines of gold criss-crossing across the walls, ceiling, and floors displaying the wealth of the Lannisters. The throne room contained an imposing throne made of gold. We all know why we are here. The northern heathens have become too powerful. Between our 4 kingdoms and the Seventh Faith militant, we can destroy the north. Why didn't you get the Mud Kings involved as well? Asked King Mel the meat gardener. They are too divided trying to unite their lands and will be of no use to us, replied King Tytos. How would we get the Faith militant to go to war with us? Asked King Molden Kinslayer Durandon. We offer them full access to the northern region. They will jump at the chance to convert the only kingdom who refuses to be converted. And how shall we divide the lands? Asked King Artizarin. I shall get the Iron Islands, the Flint Cliffs, the Rills, all the way to the northern mountains. House Arin can receive the Neck, the Three Sisters, the regions of Wolfsgard, and White Harbor. House Gardeners can receive the regions of Winterfell, from the Lonely Lake to the Barrowlands. And House Durandon shall receive everything else. Is this agreeable? It is not. How is it that I receive some stupid frozen wastelands near the wall, whilst you Lannister receive the northern mountains which are rumoured to contain silver and gems? The Gardeners receive one of the if not the greatest castle in the world, containing more books, artifacts, and gold than anywhere else in the north. And the Fuckignorins get the most trade-filled lands of the damned north, screamed King Molden. King Tytos snarled back, how would you like to divide the lands then, Kinslayer? If I am to get the damned wastes that are the land near the wall, I want my son to marry your firstborn daughter Lannister with a dowry of 5,000 golden wolves. I want the entire treasury of Winterfell, its books, and artifacts. And finally I want Artizarin to allow me to join the northern trade routes for free, bellowed King Molden, whilst glaring at King Tytos for his insult. Both Artis and Tytos screamed their chorus of no's, whilst King Mel tried to cover his fear of the wrath-filled King Molden. King Artis replied, I will let you join the northern trade routes for a fee of 1,000 golden falcons, and no additional fees until you die. After your death your family will need to pay House Ari 10% of their profits in trade to House Arin. I will consider it okay for a fee of 500 golden wolves and 5% of profits. 1,000 golden wolves and 5% of profits. That is my final offer, Kinslayer. Done. Now you, Lannister. I will be willing to give you a dowry of 1,000 golden wolves. You are foolish if you think I will take anything less than 4,000. I will give you 2,500. Please, your firstborn daughter is worth more than that, Lannister, you know it. I will not go lower than 4,000. I will not participate in this crusade otherwise. Very well, how about 4,000 golden wolves paid in 4 increments, every 5 years? If you don't hold you end of the bargain, I will take the might of the Stormlands and destroy the Westerlands. Agreed. As my father-in-law always said, a Lannister pays his debts. Now you Gardener, what say you? That sounds agreeable. I must say, you seem to have put a lot of thought into this, King Tytos, said King Mel trying to sound confident. Of course I have. We are seeing more and more rumors of northern silver and gems. Their ironwood is the most useful wood in the world, seconded by weirwood, both of which they have. They have giants and mammoths, which, while abominations in the name of the Seven, are an amazing workforce but also the greatest living war machines. They control the largest area of land, the best navy, and they now know how to make iron, and apparently special type of iron which are superior than ours, explained King Tytos. If we allow this to continue we shall never be able to beat them. We must beat them now or forever be under their power. I was made privy to Argus 7 Stars' northern invasion plan. We can use that as the basis of our invasion. I agree, and I can assure you the Faith militant will follow you. As long as you allow the destruction of the old gods, said King Artis. All of us here are Andal now, so there will be no objections from any of us. All 4 kings nodded to each, willing to fight the greater threat. But in all 4 minds they were already planning their betrayal of each other as soon as the House Stark fell. Very well, we shall meet with our armies in 5 moons in the beginning of the Neck. Agreed. Agreed. At that moment the Andal invasion of the north was planned. Underscore 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 underscore. The largest army the world has ever seen was assembled in the mouth of the Neck. A force of 98,000 men, made up of 22,000 Lannister men, 20,000 Durandan men, 30,000 Gardiner men, 16,000 Arin men, and 10,000 of the faith militant. They had around 20,000 cavalry, 10,000 knights, ranging from sworn swords to hedge knights looking to make a name. The rest were small folk given a weapon. They were overconfident in their knights' ability and cavalry, expecting the northern heathens to not know how to deal with cavalry. It worked against the Bronze King of the Vale, and the four kings were expecting the same thing against the north. King Artis, King Mael, and High Septon lead the army to Wolf's Watch, while King Tytos lead the Lannister navy to attack, while King Maldon lead the Storm navy to launch an attack at Oldcastle, the same way as Argus 7-star. Morale were high, with the different colorful banners flying high and proud, armors glinting in the sunlight. Ironic that the famed iron plate armor of the Andals, supposedly given by the smith himself, were actually given to them by the Roiner of the Kingdom of the Rhoynish Rivers. King Mael looked at his army marching slowly towards Wulfsgard. Hard days fell upon the army moving towards Wolf's Watch. Sickness fell upon his soldiers, and the Cranomen stole supplies, killed night guards, and poisoned their water supply. By the time they reached the outskirts of Wulfsgard, 30,000 of their small folk deserted. Although they didn't know it then, some of the deserters with first men decent was escorted to the north and given new lives. This gave the male population a big boost, allowing for more farmers and workers in the north. King Mael rode up to the gates of Wulfsgard and yelled as bravely as he could in the first tongue, "King Thena Stark. This is your last chance. As long as you give up your gods, the giants and the children, the Iron Islands and the Three Sisters, you or your family will be allowed to continue ruling. Ha ha ha. You think I will bow to some southerners? Wulfsgard was built to stop any invasions from the south. Built by giants, enchanted by the children, and we are the old god's champion. You think you and your 7 will save you up here? You are within the territories of the old god now. Come face your death." Hearing such heresy, the High Septon rode up to speak. "You northern heathen, there is no place out of grasp of the power of the 7 who are one. There is no old gods. The 7 shall grant us victor." Before he could continue, King Thena spat on the High Septon and yelled, "Did your 7 protect you from that? Or the losing your supplies or being poisoned? That's right, I know how weak your men are. Come here and we shall put your skulls and bones within the swamps of the neck, which was created by the children through the old god's power." Enraged, the High Septon yelled, "Charge!" The Alliance men charged forward with the few siege equipment they had left, following their enraged leader. But as soon as they charged, a wave of arrows flew towards the men. The first wave alone killed a couple hundred men. By the time they reached the walls, more than 1,000 men lay dead within the swamps and thousands had run away. With only 2/3 of the force they had started and with all of their siege equipment broke to pieces, men got routed. When it seemed like nothing could get worse, the Stark men came through the gates. Giants, mammoths, men, direwolves, and shadowcats charged through. They cut down the cavalry which were stuck within the soft ground of the neck. With men falling left, right and center, the Alliance army could not mount an effective defense or counter-attack. Their morale plummeted, and their men surrendered by the hundreds. Soon King Artis and King Mael and their lords were the only small groups of men left. They were surrounded by Stark men and their shield wall. With no escape in sight, King Thena moved to the front of the shield wall. He looked at them and said, "King Artis and King Garth, there is only one punishment suitable for attacking the north, and that is death. Your High Septon has already faced death from the volley of arrows." King Artis looked up at him and yelled, "Fuck you. I am the king of the mountains and the vale. You can't kill me. I am the only true king of the Andals. I crushed the first men in the past, and I shall now. Our 2 navy is sailing towards the coast of the north. You can't win. Even so you are trapped. And I could have my men kill you right now. I demand my birthright as a noble. I demand a trial by combat." King Thena's grin only grew more malicious, and all the lords present swore they could feel a cold wind wash over them when he replied, "Very well. Step forward. Only you, any other who attempts to step forward will be killed instantly. Follow me, we will do this the old way." "How do I know I won't be killed as soon as I approach your men?" King Thenas was now smiling maliciously, "Because your death has already been assured." King Artis, trusting King Thena's words, stepped towards the Stark men. The two soldiers he approached moved to form an opening and allow him through. Then an escort of 15 Stark men surround Artis and lead him towards the Wolf's Watch. King Thena turned to the other southern lords and said, "Surrender and I will make sure your body reaches your families. Continue to fight and you will be stripped of your armor, make you beg for death before being merciful enough to grant it." All the other lords and men immediately threw down their weapons and allowed themselves to be dragged off and restrained by the Stark men. Underscore 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 underscore. King Artis Arryn was escorted to the execution grounds of Wolf's Watch. All northern castles had two main weirwood trees. One for executions and the other for praying. This weirwood tree had a grim dark face carved into the wood, as if it judged all who came to it. King Thena walked past him and knelt in front of the weirwood tree, giving it a quick prayer before standing back up and turning to King Artis. "Take off your armor." "What?" "I said take off your armor, you slow wit. How can I fight without my armor? You wanted a trial by combat. This is the old way. The only true way. This way it is truly your skill that is tested. Not some fancy armor you buy. Now take off your armor or I will have my men beat you and then take it off." "Fucking barbarian," snarled King Artis as he took off his famed falcon armor. King Thena ignored King Artis' words and took off his own wolf pelt cloak, his iron armor, down to only his pants and boots. The rest of the lords and King Mel was dragged to the weirwood trees with their arms bound tightly. Thena drew the great sword ice from its sheath and Artis drew his long sword. The Stark men surrounded Artis and Thena in a circle with their weapons drawn. King Thena said, "The men will not interfere within this fight. If you attempt to run away they will throw you back. If you attempt to kill them, you will immediately be attacked by the other men. If by some chance you win, they will give you your armor back and a steed to ride back. This fight is to the death. There is no yielding, only death. Cocky aren't you? I have trained since the age of 5. I learned how to kill at the age of 9. I am now 45 and I have killed more than you ever have, I have trained more than you ever have, I have fought more than you ever have. I will not lose to some upstart Andal." Artis snarled in anger and slashed at Thena and was surprised at how quickly Thena was able to move his head back to dodge the slash. Thena quickly stabbed with his blade, forcing Artis to parry and back off. Thena quickly followed up with an overhead arching slash. Artis brought his blade up to block the blow and follow up with a slash of his own. But his plans were immediately put on hold as he staggered at the immense force of the blow. Artis quickly had to move his feet, positioning to not lose his footing. Thena then kicked Artis in the chest, sending him flying backwards. Artis quickly rolled to his side and got back up, snarled in anger at how unperturbed Thena seemed. Thena began to taunt Artis, "Ha, this is the man known as the best swordsman of the Andals. I only see a boy trying to play as a fighter." Artis screamed in anger and charged at Thena, slashing, stabbing, and counter-attacking from all different angles. Thena, surprised at Artis' speed and strength, quickly backed off and began to block and dodge. Artis and Thena were both tall, both standing at 170 centimeters tall, with the average being 165 centimeters, with Artis having the slightly longer arms. However, Artis was clearly weighed less than Thena, Thena's broad shoulders dwarfing Artis. Artis in his anger forgot his fighting style of speed and precision rather than speed and strength, left himself open to a counter-attack as soon as his anger sapped and no longer fueled his strength. Artis slashed sideways hoping to land a cut on Thena, but Thena brought ice around to block the sword, pushing it backward. Thena then used his elbow to smash into Artis' nose. Artis' head snapped back in pain, forcing him to quickly backstep. Wiping the blood from his nose, Artis calmed down enough to focus back on his fight. Thena was surprised at the completely different fighting style that Artis fought with, but Thena's experience allowed him to quickly adjust. He did, however, receive a small cut on his arm. The northern men began their chant, at first not being heard at all over the clashing blades. Thena fought with strength and speed, and whilst he had the advantage in both, Artis fought with the slightly better technique, allowing the fight to drag on for much longer. However, Artis soon began to feel the cold sapping his strength and endurance. So when he moved his head back to dodge an attack, he moved too slowly and received a cut over his right eye. Blood poured from this wound, forcing him to constantly wipe the blood away or have it blind him. They clashed for 10 minutes, Artis even performing a roll to the side to dodge a killing blow from Thena. Both men were injured, but Artis clearly favored more wounds. Thena had a small wound on his left arm and right leg, a minor cut on his chest and back. Artis had his broken nose, cut above his eye, a cut of his right arm and right leg, and a bruise forming on his chest and left leg. Artis attempted to defend against Thena's disarming maneuver, but with his lack of energy and wounds could not stop the blade from flying out of his hand. Not willing to give up, Artis used his remaining strength to tackle Thena to the ground. Thena and Artis smashed into the ground and ice was flung away in the fall. Artis reached for a weapon he could use to kill Thena and reached for his blade. However, when Artis reached over, Thena twisted and flipped Artis on the ground instead and smashed Artis' face with his fist. Thena practiced northern wrestling, whilst Artis only learned how to fight with blade and was completely outmatched by Thena without a weapon. Blood poured out of his wounds as Thena smashed his face 3 times with his fist. Thena hit so hard, his own fist was cut open and blooded. Thena then got off of Artis and grabbed ice. When he turned around, he saw Artis completely blooded but reaching for his sword. Due to his honor, Thena couldn't kill Artis as he lay on the floor without access to his weapon, so waited for Artis to grasp his blade and barely get up. At this point the entire clearing is filled with the smashing of weapons and the war chants of the northern men. Artis, in one last desperate attempt, stabbed at Thena, but Thena calmly sidestepped and made a deep cut on Artis' arm, making him drop his blade. Artis, knowing he was defeated, dropped to his knees. "You were one of the first families to attack the First Men. The First Men would have left you alone if you just declared war on the Bronze and Griffin Kings. Instead you attacked our culture and our religion. Your family made this war personal. You killed the children of the forest and burned the great weirwood trees. Then you went even further and dared a war against the North. You disgust me. As for your 2 navies, we knew of their coming moons ago," said King Thena. King Thena then pulled back ice and beheaded Artis, his blood feeding the weirwood tree and becoming a part of the old gods which Artis fought so hard to destroy. King Thena then gestured to King Mel to be brought over. King Mel struggled in fear, trying to throw off his bindings. "Please, the reach is extremely fertile. We can give you all the food you want. We can give you gold. Anything, just please let me live," begged King Mel. "Stop groveling. You are the descendants of Garth the Green Hand, the last High King of the First Men. Yet you betrayed your long and great history to some men with shiny weapons. You did not even fight as all other kings, except the Lannisters, had. You do not deserve your history," roared King Thena with hate and disappointment. "I, King Thena Stark, the 13th of my name. The High King in the North and the Isle. The embodiment of winter and the storms. High Magna of Winterfell. King of the First Men, children of the forest, and the giants, and Magna Protector of the realm, sentence you to death." His great sword was raised high in the air and in a sweeping arc, King Mel was no more. All other lords of the south were also beheaded in front of the weirwood tree, with their bodies returned to their respective homes. However, King Artis Arryn's body and entrails was hung upon the newly sprouted weirwood tree at the mouth of the neck. His legendary falcon armor and falcon crown would be added into the halls of artifacts. The arrow-filled corpses of the High Septon and the destruction of Faith Militant King Thena earned his new nicknames as the Andalbreaker, Kingslayer and Seven Slayer. Underscore 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 underscore. Crown Prince Theon Stark sailed his navy around to ambush House Durrandon. As soon as they heard about the meeting in Casterly Rock, they knew they were going to be attacked. When the king's men reported King Tytos and King Maldon ordering their navy to start moving, they knew of the naval invasion. Crown Prince Theon radiated anger, thinking about King Maldon, who slew his friend and ally. Crown Prince Theon was a genius tactician in both naval and land combat. He had made his battle plans and only needed bait. At the dead of night, he sailed towards the Storm Navy, rowing carefully when approaching the navy which had set anchor a few dozen kilometers outside of Gulltown. Due to the size of the Eastern Fleet, they discovered them a league away. However, Prince Theon wanted them to approach the Storm Navy as silently as possible, and as soon as they were discovered they started to sail again and round the sides of the boat. Most of the crew of the Storm Navy was asleep with only a skeleton crew of left to guard. They had only expected to have to fight the Eastern Navy when they approached Old Castle. By the time all of the crew members was awake and trying to save their boats, they were round by the hull of the Eastern Fleet, which was reinforced by ironwood, crafted by the foresters. The outer line of boats were all destroyed, as the ironwood cut through the Storm Navy like water. King Maldon, knowing that they were going to lose, ordered his ship, the flagship of the Storm Navy, Storm Rusher, to turn around and leave. King Maldon and the ships near him were able to make a retreat back to the volcanic rocks near the Blackwater Bay. They could not sail to Gulltown, as the Starks blocked that route and Gulltown was not informed of their movements as an attack. All survivors of the wrecked ships were taken to the north. As they were skilled in sailing they would be useful as traders. So they were given the option, just like the deserters, to either get killed or join the north. Many of the first men, unhappy with King Marlon and his kinslaying, happily joined the north. Underscore 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 underscore. A month has passed since the naval battle between the Storm Navy and Eastern Fleet. Crown Prince Theon starred on top of Winterwind, his personal ship. Prince Theon had won every battle and skirmish, forcing the Storm Navy to perform a full retreat back to Storm's End. Prince Theon was planning on sacking the entire castle. After studying King Brandon the Builder blueprints, he constructed his attack plan. He looked ahead and ordered the invasion to begin. Small longboats slowly sailed towards Storm's End in the darkest night, where not even the moon shines. After around an hour, Prince Theon began to worry that their first plan had failed. But before he could begin Plan B, his men sent the signal. The remaining Storm Navy, which numbers dwindled down to just over 100 ships, around half of what they had in the beginning of the war, lit up in a massive flame. The fires soon began to grow out of control, and although the Durrandon men had woken up and attempted to quench the flames, it grew to be unstoppable. As soon as the fire started, Prince Theon and his fleet sailed to the docks. With no boats, the Durrandons could not stop them from landing. With the giants, children of the forest, and men, they were able to march up to Storm's End relatively quickly. The men using the shield wall formation with the giants were able to repel the arrows being shot at them. A couple of men died due to rocks and barrels of hot oil being thrown at them, however, the main force was able to stand strong against the repelling of the Durrandons. The children took 10 minutes to take away the enchantments put into Storm's End. The magic of Storm's End was loosely woven around the castle and was very easy to destroy. No object that big could be tightly covered with magic, with Winterfell being the only odd exception. Without the powerful enchantments, the gates, which would have taken the giants 15 minutes to bash through, the giants were able to bash it open with a makeshift batter ram in 3. The men rushed inside, killing the guards and archers. The men poured up to the walls to slay the archers, who were no longer protected by the walls. Crown Prince Theon had made his way to the main keep and burst through into the throne room. The fight was bloody. Storm's End was a formidable castle, even without the enchantments added by the children. But with 4 giants and 10,000 men, what should have taken a minimum of 15,000 men and 6 moons with major losses, took only a day. Crown Prince Theon saw King Maldon fully armored standing in front of his throne. Crown Prince Theon charged at King Maldon, and the ensuing battle was a battle of legends, which would be sung about for thousands of years. King Maldon wielded a newly forged massive warhammer. Prince Theon knew he wouldn't be able to block the hammer many times, so he got in close. Shortening the range King Maldon had to work with. Starting with a jab, he stepped towards King Doran. Expecting this move, King Maldon was able to sidestep in time, but he wasn't expecting Prince Theon to be strong or quick enough to retaliate immediately with a slash. Prince Theon was a gaunt and lanky-looking man. He towered over most men, at a height of 174 centimeters tall. Whilst he wasn't weak by any means, he was not as heavily built as other Starks. This led him to often looking skinny, and being underestimated. Hastily stepping back, King Maldon was put into the defensive. Prince Theon wielded great sword which seemed heavy to most people, but because it was made of winter iron, it was surprisingly light and allowed for more maneuverability for the wielder. In a defensive position, King Maldon could barely block all the attacks, being forced constantly on the backstep and given no opportunity to attack. Desperate, he swung his mighty warhammer. Not expecting him to be able to retaliate quickly enough, Prince Theon was surprised. He barely ducked out of the way and he had lost the advantage. They were trading blows after blows. To most people, it would seem as though they were evenly matched, but a skilled warrior could see Prince Theon was the slightly better fighter. King Maldon also could see this, so he stepped back and attacked with a side swing. However, instead of trying to hit Prince Theon, he aimed for his sword. As soon as it made contact, the blade flew out of Prince Theon's hand, flew 10 meters away and struck the stone floor with a loud clang. King Maldon then put all of his power into a heavy overhand swing, forcing Prince Theon to jump and roll out of the way. The first men prefer wearing leather armor instead of the heavy plate mail worn by the Andals. Prince Theon was dressed in a hard-boiled leather chest plate, with iron armor for his arms and shoulders and greaves. Without the heaviness of plate armor, Prince Theon was able to dodge all of the hammer blows. When King Maldon put up too much strength into one of his attacks, Prince Theon sidestepped, quickly kicked him straight on his arm. King Maldon, being unbalanced from his attack, was unable to defend himself. King Maldon flew to his side, hitting the ground, and looked up to face Prince Theon's fist. It connected with a crack, making King Maldon dizzy enough for Prince Theon to get on top of him and keep punching. King Maldon's Durandon blood sung with rage and anger. Rage flowed through King Maldon, and with his fury-filled strength bucked Theon away. He quickly got up and looked for his hammer. Seeing it a few paces behind him, he turned around and retrieved it. But as soon as he turned around to face Prince Theon, his hammer was knocked out of his hand. King Maldon was confused to see that it was a sword, knocking the blade away from his hands. The watchers would know that King Maldon accidentally kicked Prince Theon towards his great sword. King Maldon would then be forced to dodge and weave against Prince Theon's fast strikes. Knowing he had no chance with his plate armor, quickly shed the armor with his knife. This allowed King Maldon to move much quicker, but it also left him far more vulnerable to his attacks. King Maldon, in desperation, threw his dagger at Theon's face. Theon leaned his head back and was barely able to dodge the dagger. It however left a small cut on his cheeks. When he came back up to face King Maldon, he found himself tackled out of the hole into the courtyard. Landing on his back, Prince Theon had to block King Maldon's powerful punches. Prince Theon knew Maldon was stronger, however, Theon had practiced northern wrestling since as a child, and where he learned how to make up for his lack of strength through technique. This allowed Theon to dodge and deflect one of Maldon's wild punches. Maldon screamed in pain as his fist struck the hard ground as hard as he could. Using this opening, Theon was able to get both of his legs on one side of Maldon and throw him off. Theon then kicked the side of Maldon's right, damaging the joint. While Maldon was on his knee, Theon kicked Maldon in the chest, forcing him back onto the ground. Instead of reaching of his great sword like Maldon had tried, Theon instead stamped on King Maldon's hand, crushing it underneath his boots, following his attack up with a kick to the downed king's face. Dazed, King Maldon was unable to stomp to the stomach, and he instinctively protected his face. Maldon gasped as the air forcefully left his lungs. Prince Theon, after utterly crippling Maldon, walked back into the keep and grabbed ice from where it fell. He turned around and was surprised to see King Maldon on his legs. His legs were wobbling and he was clearly favoring his left knee, however, it was still impressive he was standing at all. Prince Theon walked to King Maldon, who wobbled towards Theon. Doran sends his fucking regards. May he laugh at your torment at the hands of the old gods, said the crowned prince. He then, with a mighty swing, locked off King Maldon's head. Underscore 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 underscore. It has been a moon since his fight with King Maldon the Kinslayer. Prince Theon was now given the name Stormbreaker. Prince Theon knew he couldn't hold Storm's End and have it be beneficial for the north. They were still guarding the room with all the court ladies, children, and Prince now King Doran. They fed them by leaving food outside their door, then leaving for 1 hour. Prince Theon was too honorable to kill the defenseless women and children or let his men rape the court ladies. Besides, the North had no real interest of any kingdom below the neck, other than some of the islands. So instead Prince Theon decided to loot and break Storm's End. He found a few chests of gold, silver, and gems. He took weapons, took tapestries, good artworks, good furniture, and gathered raw materials. He sent all of it back with a quarter of his boats led by his younger brother, Roderick Stark, a capable warrior and effective leader, to take back the treasures to Winterfell. He then broke the gates, had the giants tear down parts of the wall, and broke the forge. He knew these people would be fine because the Storm army was coming to retake Storm's End, and Prince Doran was a great fighter, as good as or better than his father, and was respected by all of the lords in the Stormlands. This only damages Storm's End, which means House Durrandon would need to spend time fixing and rebuilding their lands before they could focus on attacking anywhere else. Then just a week before the Storm army arrived with 3/4 of his navy, he went to towns and settlements in both the Reach and the Stormlands to offer the first men small folk a place in the north with the old gods. Many small folk took the offer and decided to travel. The north, while very successful, still had a very low population compared to the other kingdoms. He also stole harvest, chopped down lumber, and carried away anything that could be of value. He also beat any and all opposition from the Reach and Stormlands. He did this by avoiding the main Durrandon and Gardener